Meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Public comment will occur during the public comment portion of the meeting and is done via raising your hand remotely or in person, or just coming up to the microphone. During public comment, once acknowledged, please state your name and ward so that it can be included in the minutes, and please limit your time to 3 minutes. Public comment is governed by policy BEDH. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda?
Yes, we will have 2 items for non-public.
Okay, great. All right, so we will open up the meeting for public comment, and we will start with people in the room. Is there anyone in the room who would like to give public comment? Please come on up to the, take turns.
There's 3 of us.
All right.
Hi everybody, my name is Maggie Finn and I'm a current humanities teacher at the high school, and I'm speaking in favor of the board policy GJFAB, which is the admission of district employees, non-resident students. Sadly, my husband and I have to relocate this summer and we will not be returning to the district, but I feel passionately about this policy, so I still wanted to speak. I explored job opportunities in 5 different states for my upcoming move, and every school district offered some version of this policy to benefit teachers' children. Lebanon has been an amazing and special place to work for me, and passing this policy will only make it an even stronger district. I'd also urge you to consider the financial implications of this policy on district employees and consider minimizing the financial burden on staff. I know recruitment and retainment are priorities for the district, and I strongly believe this policy would benefit both of those goals. I've been so grateful for my time in Lebanon, and I hope that many more teachers in the future can have that same experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jason Tetu. I work here at the high school. I reside in Cornish, but I'm also a board member down there. And I wanted to come to speak to this policy because we went through the exact same scenario, and I think we actually have almost an identical policy to where you folks sit with yours right now. And I'd like to kind of use, kind of speak to the numbers a little bit and some of the things that we've seen. So with the policy, the way it's written and the way that yours is currently sitting, I strongly feel that you will really struggle to have your staff see it as a benefit. We have yet to have a staff member be financially able to take advantage of that benefit, because when you look at it based on using your per pupil cost as your baseline and then 25% of that, now you're looking at $8,000 per child. And then if you kind of compare that and look at that as a percentage of income, it starts to get really high really fast. If we're looking at a teacher who's maybe new to the district, or just somebody who's at like that year 8 kind of mark, like right smack dab in the middle, we're talking over 10% of their income, just to be able to utilize this policy the way it is. And as we all know, because we have to do the numbers every year, we know that cost, if we're going to keep it as a percentage, is going to escalate every year. So that's what we've seen. We've seen this policy, go out with good intent, but be a real struggle to use. We're also looking at the same issues you guys are, getting people to be able to move here. The cost of housing, the availability of housing, let alone the cost, is something that makes it so that we are seeing, as we're going through the application season, the same as you, that we are seeing applicants who are looking at not necessarily relocating to us, but looking at coming to us and from further and further and further out. And as a parent myself, I know that, I feel really lucky to live where I do, that I bought my house when I did, because even with the fact that you are very supportive of our salaries here, my wife and I both work in the school district, I can tell you right now, I could not qualify to buy the same house now that I did 7 years ago, which blows my mind. And we're all living it, we all see it with our property taxes, everything like that. So I think that a lot of these numbers point towards maybe making a different choice on your cost. I would actually fully encourage you, and at the point my children are old enough, I don't have any financial stake in this. I just know what I've seen in our board and having to kind of come up with this, that I get the reason for having a number, because you are answerable to taxpayers, and they are wondering, why would somebody else's child come here at no cost versus I pay taxes here and my child's here. And I completely get that argument. However, if you're looking at this as a way to attract and or retain people, then I think that argument is secondary. And ultimately that's not how our board chose to go, and I think it has hurt us. So I would really encourage you to take a look at that number and go to 0 with it. If you don't think you can get there, then set it at a specific number, pegging it to a percentage. And one other piece on if you're gonna, I feel strongly you shouldn't use your per pupil rate, because that number doesn't disaggregate things like special ed, all these other things. You wrote your policy so it costs the district $0, but then we're at this point where the policy would actually make the district money if you went by the way you wrote it. So that's a lot. Sorry if I spoke too long, but I want to make sure I got all the numbers out there for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the building? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Angel, and I've been an English teacher at Lebanon High School for 11 years. I'm here to share my perspective on policy GJFAB, admission of district employees, non-resident students, and encourage the Lebanon School District to pass it. I love my job, and I love the Lebanon school system. I frequently attend sporting events, both in person and online, watch concerts and performances, and try to stay current with the many achievements of our students. I run a program, Leb to Leb, where a collection of high school students volunteer to read to Hanover Street students every Wednesday. I say this not because I think that my commitment to Lebanon is exceptional, but I think that my involvement is representative of the care and engagement that many of our current employees have for the district. This policy offers an opportunity to retain teachers such as myself. If it were to pass, I would be in Lebanon for many more years while my children move through the system. My profession is my chance to help my children to receive a well-rounded education. My husband comes from a proud line of dairy farmers, and as such, we are committed to the stewardship of our land. Like many young teachers who are unable to afford to live in Lebanon, I must commute a significant distance. If our daughters were permitted to attend Lebanon, it would allow more time for me to commit to both them and to the district. The number of applicants for open positions has declined, and a teacher shortage is predicted on a national level. The lure of a dynamic school culture where their children could attend will attract teachers. It would enable families to settle in communities that are more affordable on a young teacher's salary. It would encourage teachers to expand their focus for the greater good of all students as they would approach their work with the dual lens of both a teacher and a parent. It would be an additional incentive to give more to the community. Teachers would be in their classrooms for longer each day, waiting for pickups or practices, instead of fleeing to pick up their children as soon as the contract allows. My daughter already feels a sense of loyalty to Lebanon, just as I do. She was 10 months old when I held her on my hip while coaching boys reserve basketball. She participated in last year's Shakespeare play as an outlaw. When she sets up our lawn for an afternoon game of soccer, I'm always designated to play as Hanover, and my 5-year-old daughter, always the victor, gets to be Lebanon. She has always seen herself as a Raider, and it is my hope that she will get to be one. I encourage you to consider this as a policy that will benefit the community, the district, and the morale and lives of the employees. In addition to the challenges with recruitment, a family-friendly policy such as this will serve to retain teachers. Teacher turnover is inevitable, but it serves everyone if we can continue to have the same caliber that we have in the long run. This is a policy that will change my life and the lives of my children. Thank you for the time and efforts that you spent.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the building? Okay. Is there anyone online?
Amelia Serene.
Amelia? Amelia, are you there?
Amelia, you're on mute.
Yes, I just got promoted.
Oh, hold on one second.
I just got promoted to be a
Okay,
panelist.
perfect,
Thank
go ahead.
you. First, I have one comment, which is it would be nice for the people who are coming from Zoom to be able to see those who are speaking. In the past, there's been a camera on the speakers at the microphone. That's not a big thing, it's just a mention. And I'm here particularly about the police officer and the school issue. Is this the time for me to speak, or shall I wait until later?
No, this is it, go ahead.
Okay. So, you may know that I feel passionately about not having an armed officer in the school. I spoke up when there was an armed officer stationed in the school, and now I understand that there's something called a CRO, which is a community resource officer, and by officer, I believe it means police officer. There are other kinds of officers, and I think you should name this for what it is. And I feel similarly about it, and I think pushing for asking to have the CRO, the Community Resource Police Officer, is like the proverbial camel getting its nose under the tent flap. And that's pretty much what I have to say. Thank you for your time, for your attention.
Thank you.
You can demote me now.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online?
No.
No? Okay, so we will close public comment for now, and we will reopen it again at the end of the meeting. We're going to move on to the correspondence.
There was one letter,
There was,
and her concern was, have we thought through using one of the new classrooms for childcare?
okay, thank you.
Well, can I just ask a quick question? I was noticing when I go into the correspondence folder, I'm not seeing those emails.
Yes, I was just made aware of that. I'll make sure that
Okay.
those emails get in.
Thank you.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve the public hearing and public minutes from April 17th, 2024?
I'll make a motion to approve both public hearing minutes. One was on the donation from the Byrne Foundation, and the other one was on the donation from the Post-22 American Legion on April 17th, 2024.
I'll second it.
Motion by MJ, second by Mary. Is there any comment on that? No? All right. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous 8. All right, and a second motion?
Make a motion to approve the Lebanon School Board minutes from Wednesday, April 17th, 2024.
Okay, motion by MJ. Can I get a second? Second by Mary. Okay. Are there any changes, additions, deletions, some revisions? I'm looking at you because you're very good about that. All right. All right, looks like they're good. All those in favor? Okay, great. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Let's go to the, can I get a motion on the nominations, renominations, and acknowledging the resignations and retirements?
Make a motion to accept the nominations and resignation sheet dated May 8th, 2024.
Okay, can I get a second for that? Second by Mary. Are there any questions or comments on the nominations and resignations? Yeah, go ahead.
Can we just have a little background on the two assistant principals that are on the sheet?
Sure. Let's start with LMS. Carolyn Rooney is a language art teacher currently at LMS who has been selected for assistant principal. The staff are really excited to bring her forward, and she's excited to join us. Hanover Street Elementary School, Megan McFarland. Megan was a teacher at LMS primarily. She helped run our summer school program. She left Lebanon last year to get experience as an assistant principal in Vermont, and her wish was to come back. So Hanover Street is excited to bring her on board for their assistant principal.
Any other questions about the nominations, comments? No? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the nominations and resignations for May 8th, 2024? Thank you. All in favor? I think we need a separate motion for the administrators, right?
I will make a motion to approve the school administrators renomination sheet for 2024-2025.
Motion by MJ, second by Mary. Yes?
On the back of the teacher one, there's selfishly, there's mine interest. Is that what you're motioning, or are you doing?
Both of them. I think we're doing.
There's two sets of administrators.
I only have one.
It's on the back of
The nomination.
Saving paper, are we?
Okay, so
So we want another motion?
What is the class, what do you title that?
do you want to, yeah, what do you tell on that?
I'd
If
say
no-
SAU administrators.
Okay.
I also make a motion to approve the SAU administrators for the school year 2024-2025.
I'll second.
All right, so we'll start with that one. Any questions?
I think we can do both of them.
Can we do both together? Okay, both of them together then. Fine, we have two motions. We're going to vote on them together. Are there any questions about any of these? Okay, all those in favor? Great, motion passes, thank you. Okay, moving, I don't think we have a student report. Oh, there she is. I didn't see you, sorry. We have a student report. Welcome.
Hi, good morning. Oh, whoa, good evening. I'm so sorry. I'm so stressed out about this. Okay, good evening. I'm Avarika Narola, and I'm here on behalf of council. So a few updates. The senior tea was last week, and it went really nicely, along with the senior lunch, which was a great hit among the students. So the AP exam started this week, and it's gonna go on to next week, and students are working really hard and are, preparing for it. Prom is this Saturday, and the prom committee has been working towards this for about 2 months now, and this is the annual thing, so we're hoping it goes smoothly too. And then that day, Grand March is at 5, if anybody wants to join us. And then council is working towards organizing Springfest at the end of May, which is also an annual thing we do. And this year we're bringing forward Miss Seuss. I don't know if you guys know Miss Seuss. She is a new staff at the high school, and she is bringing her ice cream cart there, and we're, it's gonna be really fun. Teacher appreciation. This is Teacher Appreciation Week, and council today delivered ordered drinks for all the faculty and staff, which was a really big hit, and people loved our creamers that we got from PJ's. So it went really well. Yeah, and that is it. Thank you for your time.
Does anybody have any questions for Ava or comments? Are they still accepting the nominations for the teacher appreciation, like the emails and things? Are they done with that?
I believe today was the last day. But
Okay, great, thanks. Thank you.
thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, SAU leadership team update from the superintendent.
Thank you. As we near the end of the academic year, our district is full of activities and entertainment. We recently hosted the International Potluck at Mount Lebanon School, where families and staff came together to enjoy delicious food and entertainment. The Wet Paint Players production of Merrily We Go was successful, and thank you to the dedication and the talent of all involved. We'd like to thank the Lebanon Women's Club for their ongoing support and generosity towards our seniors. Their invitation to the Marion Carter House, featuring guest speaker Ann Akins, gave our students an enriching experience at senior tea. Also, as mentioned, our seniors had a fantastic time at the senior barbecue. The construction progress at Hanover Street and Lebanon High School is progressing, and we anticipate announcing dates for a ribbon cutting ceremony soon. The Lebanon School District will have a table at the Farmers Market on May 23rd. June 13th, July 25th, and August 8th. Tim and I recently participated in a focus group visioning session for the Route 120 corridor, contributing to meaningful community discussions about use and future concerns. In our ongoing commitment to safety, we're utilizing Title IV grants to develop school bus safety videos for drivers and bus stop safety, which will be available for viewing in August. We're also excited to announce that Lebanon High School has achieved high national metro rankings in the 2024 Best High School Schools reports. By securing a place in the top 40% of all schools at the national level, Lebanon High School has been recognized as a U.S. News Best High School, making it eligible to display the award badge. Lebanon High School has been ranked 4th in New Hampshire, which is a testament to the hard work and dedication of Principal Smith, our students, teachers, staff, and families. Congratulations to the entire Lebanon High School community for this incredible accomplishment. Today is School Nurse Day. So I'd like to express our appreciation to Karen, Holly, Kelly, and Kelly for their invaluable contributions for the well-being of our students, staff, and families. And finally, as we celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week, I want to thank all the teachers and staff members of the Lebanon School District for their dedication, passion, and commitment to our students' success. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions for the superintendent? No? Okay. Move on to the business administrator update.
Good evening. I have just a few small things. The month closed after the board meeting packet, so we'll do the monthly financial next board meeting. But Amy mentioned maybe doing a quick job openings update, so hot off the presses from Xavier. By the way, all of our job postings are on the SAU 88 website under employment, so you can see, we try to keep that up to date. You can see that anytime you want. But right now we're looking for 2 paras, 5 teachers, including a psychologist, 3 custodians, an occupational therapist, a speech language pathologist, and an assistant. A couple coaches and 2 adult ed teachers. So I don't know, you might think that's a long list, but it's actually, I think we're doing pretty well, especially in custodials and maintenance. We have 3 custodian openings, but 2 of those are retiring, and so we've only got like 1, well, basically 1.5. We call it 3, a total of 3, but it's actually 3.5. 1.5 openings of vacancies. So we've added several custodians in the last few weeks. We added a new maintenance person this week, and we have a strong prospect for our 5th, and it would be up to speed on that. So I feel like we're making good progress. Our teacher openings, I don't think are anything really to worry about. It's been crazy how much paperwork I've been pushing this week, so I think we're in a good shape. I wanted to let you know that the RFP process for food service wrapped up, and Amy and myself and Shaylee reviewed we had 3 really good candidates this time, which is 1 more than last time, and it was actually a tough decision, which was good. But we did award and got approval from the state today to offer the contract for the next 5-year period in 1-year installments. So any year we can redo it any year we want. But it's a maximum of 5 years. We'll stay with Cafe Services Fresh Picks. They had a really promising program, the best in their budget, ranked lower in some other places. You know, the rest of it is, you get budget, which is pretty hard numbers and a lot of marketing. So we like what they've done for us. We like their numbers. They did propose, as I mentioned to some people on the tour, they did propose, including in the budget, bringing the Hanover Street kitchen up to a full cooking kitchen. So as we have more details on that, I'll be talking to you about it. Obviously, it's ultimately the board's decision, but it seemed to make a lot of sense and wasn't a lot of money. So we'll be moving forward in that tack, I guess. Any other questions, I guess?
I mean, I'm sort of just curious. I know you said that we don't have the updated numbers, but how are we doing? How poorly are you sleeping?
I'm as anxious as
or are you sleeping well? I'm curious.
I'm as anxious as I was 2 weeks ago. We're not doing any better, but it's a frustrating time for me because there's a lot of purchase orders that are open, and you try to always fighting to close them. I'm convinced there's significant funds wrapped up in purchase orders that everybody says they have to have open still. So until I say no more, we've got to close those POs. It's looking about the same as it was last time, so not too much worse. But
thank you.
Anything else for Tim? All right. DECIA update. Karen.
Hi, everybody. I just have a brief update about our summer programming to share with you. Our programming looks like this. We have 3 summer programs that we're going to run this summer, just as last summer. At LHS, our summer programming is a competency-based credit recovery program. It's run by Mike Anakis, who's one of our science teachers at the high school. The program is slated to run from June 20th through July 24th. And we'll welcome, as we did last year, a group of rising 9th graders in the final 3 weeks of that program to this building. The timing of that is in tandem with our Rising K to Rising 8 summer school program. That Rising K to Rising 8 summer school program has a new director this year, Erin Mills. She is part of our LMS leadership team, as you know, during the school year. She's taken over leadership of the summer school program, and she has shared with me that we are poised to serve over 130 students in that program this year, and it will be housed again at the middle school. Finally, in August, our preschool summer program will run again for 2 weeks. That program is headed up by Elizabeth Bailey, who's part of the Mount Lev leadership team. She ran a really successful program last year to support our preschoolers in a school readiness program. So that is the summary of what you can expect to hear about this summer. We're looking forward to another fun-filled summer of learning. That's all I got for you. Does anybody have any questions about this or any other topic?
Don't open it up like that.
Just this time.
Now that you mentioned it.
We're good. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks very much.
So if the rest of the board doesn't have an objection, I'm going to propose that we move under new business E, F, and G up before the outdoor presentations, so that teachers don't have to sit through all of this if they don't want to. So does anybody object? No, so we're going to policies, Wendy, I'm sorry, we're shifting it to.
Not ready.
In your second packet, you do have committee notes from policy and EC. They're stapled together. We need to refer to them.
So do we want to take GFAB separate from the other 2?
That's probably a good idea, I think so.
GJFAB.
Yes, and then just sort of, I just have one question about BBE. It's a quick question that probably we could just move it along if I can get that question answered. Sorry. So BBE under authority to fill vacancy, so B of BBBE. Number 1, sorry, the last line of number 1. In the event, if the remaining members refuse or are unable to agree on a replacement, or in the event that no remaining school board members exist, then the select board may make the appointment. So we don't have a select board, so we should probably change that to what we do have. So would that be the city council?
I can't imagine that we would let the city council.
Right, so I'm saying, what are we have to, I mean, that in all, that is our analogous to the select board, so, but who wouldn't be making that decision otherwise?
So I think we can probably pass the policy and just, we probably have to look at what those RSAs say. And because I don't know if that is only valid run it through Jim.
Yeah.
If that's only valid in communities where the select board and the school district are intertwined a bit more than ours.
Right, I mean, I'm assuming that's what it is, but if that's the case, then we don't want to have it in our policy because
Right.
we are not entwined.
So we'll just, yeah.
Okay.
So we'll just double check.
That's my only non-grammatical question.
So I'll make a motion
Do you
to.
have a question on BBE?
Oh, I did, but I mean,
Yeah, no,
if
go
you
ahead.
make the motion, then we can ask.
Okay.
Go ahead and.
Oh, I was just wondering, on BBBE, it says a temporary absence with intent to return. So did the law or the language define like what temporary is? Or was there any discussion as to how temporary is?
It doesn't have any clarification.
Okay.
Or specification.
It's very big.
So I'll make a motion to move policies BBBA and BBBE for a second reading we'll clarify that select
Oh, I
board.
think we're talking BBA as well.
Oh, do you have a question on BBB?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I've got just a few suggested changes.
Are they grammatical or are they substantive?
They're substantive.
Okay, good.
So
Wanna make
when
sure.
it comes to the definition mentioning residency, I think we should get rid of the word residency from that and rewrite the last, rewrite the last line from such residence or residency shall not be interrupted or lost by a temporary absence from it if there is an intent to return to such residence or residency as the principal place of physical presence, and rewrite that as designation of a person's place of abode or domicile shall not be interrupted, because the rest of the policy doesn't mention residency. So we should probably get rid of the word residency in that definition down the bottom, because we're not actually talking about residency as the pertinent term.
So, when you had wanted, in policy, when you were looking for a definition?
I was looking for just the bit that had the, just the bit about,
What domicile?
yeah, exactly.
So did we pick up the wrong definition is the question?
Just pick too much of it. I was thinking all we needed was, the place of abode or domicile is that designated by a person as their principal place of physical presence to the exclusion of all others. We don't actually need the first sentence really at all.
The first sentence?
About residence and
Okay,
residency.
yep.
And then you don't need the last sentence.
And then we can amend the second sentence if we want to include it to the place of abode or domicile shall not be interrupted or lost by a temporary absence from it.
Okay.
The designation of that, a temporary, that kind of thing. And that way, we're not focusing on residency when the rest of the policy doesn't.
That makes sense.
So do we want the last sentence, or do we want to modify that last sentence?
Can I ask you a question about that? I guess I was a little thrown, and now that I'm understanding the background a little bit, it's making a little bit more sense. But I guess residency is an extremely well-defined legal and well-defined. It's fought over frequently, but it's it's frequently addressed in legal proceedings, and so I'm not sure we would be able to define our own.
That's actually from an RSA. That's
Which
copy and
one?
pasted.
Should we just refer to the RSA
Why?
rather than, that would be my question. Like, I wonder if we should just refer to it rather than make it look like we are attempting to create our own definition of residency, because it's such a contested and.
We did discuss just referring to the statute from which this comes, but in the end we decided to simply include a definition, and this is actually my fault for not being clearer in the policy meeting, that we just needed to clarify what place of abode meant, because that's what we're entering in, not residency. We're just entering in the language of a place of abode changing.
So we can include we can put the RSA that this comes from right after it.
Sure.
I think we should, if the purpose is sort of clarification and definition, I think that we should be referring, including the legal reference, because it's not gonna have any weight on its own, like us just saying
I
this
think
is
we
what
can
residence
put
means
the
to
legal
us.
reference under the legal references, we can
Yeah.
add that there,
That's fine.
and then
That's
just,
That works.
and then, but keep the definition. I mean, I think we felt it was important to have that defined slightly, but I don't care if we have the last sentence of that paragraph, or.
Yeah, for me the only important sentence was the place of, explaining the definition of a place of abode or domicile, because we referenced that.
Yep.
Okay, so then we're saying just keep the second sentence of that definition and add the RSA under legal references.
Yep.
And then that covers everybody's.
Yeah, that satisfies mine.
Great.
Can I ask a question, not to be difficult? But, I'm just thinking about this so the place of abode, is that designated by a person as their principal place of physical presence to the exclusion of all others? That feels like my issue is that we say, prove that you live in Lebanon for kindergarten or whatever, so this almost seems like I declare it, so therefore, I'm a registered voter, I live in Plainfield, do I get to declare that my abode is in Lebanon? Or do we, there's no proof besides me declaring it according to the sentence we're talking about? It feels like to me.
If you declare your place of residency to be here and you live in Cornish, you can't vote there anymore. Because we could just take that to Cornish and be like, this guy lives here. He
We're in
says
Plainfield,
so.
not
Or
Cornish,
Plainfield.
yuck. That's-
Sorry.
Point remains.
I misheard you.
So Tim, this goes back to Jessica's point. This is the legal definition. You're right, it's slippery. We're not in charge of that.
Okay.
Because.
That's why people fight about it in courts all the time. But,
Okay.
which again is why I feel like
Yeah.
we should make clear in here that this is not like the Lebanon School District saying,
Yeah.
now we have a definition of residency.
No, I agree. I think that, okay, so are there any other for BBBA?
Those were my comments. Oh, there was just a wording change that, in the first sentence, just to make it more grammatically correct.
Yeah, we'll just,
But we
just,
can
yeah,
get that
just
later.
print that out and we'll give it to.
Yep.
I did appreciate the highlighting for whoever did
Yeah.
that change. That was helpful.
Okay, so we're now have the motion for, to move BBBA and BBBE to second reading. Do we have a second for that?
With the modifications.
With the modifications that we've talked about. Second by Tia, motion by Wendy, second by Tia. Any additional comment on these two? Okay, all those in favor? Great. Which brings us back to
Okay.
GJFAB.
So GJFAB. We do have a policy JFAB about non-resident students. It was the decision of the policy committee to create this separate from that policy, just for making it clean. And the Gs are the employee section of our policies. So I can make a motion.
Make a motion, then we'll talk about it.
So I move that we move policy GJFAB for second reading. Second.
Okay, moved by Wendy, second by Tia. All right, is there any discussion?
So, yeah. So in thinking further about this policy after it came out of policy, I think we had talked about having this be sort of like a trial, just sort of seeing how it goes. I think if we do that, I think I'm in favor of putting the fewest parameters possible on it. So I think the main thing in the policy to remove would be the 25%, and just sort of seeing, and not necessarily capping the number of students, as long as we have space and the superintendent feels like it's not going to impact classroom size in a negative way and those kinds of things, then I think we give it a year, see what arises, and then if we feel like we need to put parameters around it, we do that. But I think it's hard to know exactly what our problems, like we would be, if we put parameters now, we're sort of trying to solve problems that we don't even know that we have yet.
I do have a question. I like the idea. My question is for actually, I think, Tim. Does this have a taxable benefit implication for the teachers that take advantage of it, and do we know how to manage that?
Good question. So if we offer free tuition.
That's what I mean.
I'm gonna have to ask our tax attorney.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
And is there a way we could pick a number that's not zero that would
$1
be more beneficial for them? Like, this is what I mean.
Yeah.
I'd like to get the deal right for the teachers.
I don't know, maybe Amy, you know this question, but it says the district will provide special ed services and the cost will be responsibility of the sending district of residents. I confess I'm not up to date enough on how ADM is actually calculated. So if we get the ADM for the student, why would a district who lost the ADM then want to pay us for special ed services?
That is one of the challenges for that. That has been the recommendation from other school boards that those special ed costs remain at the where the employee lives.
Yeah, I get that, but I just don't know. Again, using my Plainfield example, well, that's a bad example in the area agreement, but if I lost the revenue, the sending district loses the revenue because the student comes here. And now we're saying, you just lost your $4,000, and we want you to pay, and the special ed.
Oftentimes, the parents may choose to pay
Yeah.
that special ed cost for that. Some districts do have some cost to this policy. Some have opted to make it zero.
Kind of
zero.
different, yeah.
for
It's
that
kind of,
reason.
change the subject, I'm sorry for that. But,
So I'm gonna step backwards ever so slightly on this policy. I guess I'm curious about a couple of things. I think that, I love the idea of supporting our teachers. I love the idea of strengthening our district by having an additional sort of way to attract and retain teachers. Those seem like worthy goals. I'm very curious about, I haven't seen any numbers about our sense of how much this might actually cost the district. So that's sort of one question which we may be able to answer. But I think beyond that, I am also curious about why we're bringing this forward right at this particular moment, whether there's some urgency or not, partly because I know that we do have, this feels like an additional benefit to teachers, and so to some extent it feels like that's perhaps appropriate as part of a sort of conversation about teacher contracts and sort of everything else. So I'm curious about a little bit of the background on how we get here today.
Sure. Let me start. So this has been a topic of local superintendents as we all struggle with teacher recruitment and retention and the national teacher shortage that is coming ahead as more teachers are aging towards retirement and less teachers are coming into the profession. So I brought this forward to the policy committee. I did a survey for interest there. I think we had about 14, 15 people that were interested, not maybe at this time, they're younger kids, but.
Meaning 14, 15 of current teachers.
Yes, right. This won't have a cost to the Lebanon School District. Actually, we will be collecting, if they're New Hampshire residents, the ADM. So we'll get the adequacy aid for those students to attempt here. So within this policy, built in those guardrails that we have to stay within our class size, where we kind of are set our targets for class size. So if someone asked for, let's say, Hanover Street School for 4th grade this year, we're at cap size, so we would not be able to enroll. But if they wanted to go to Mount Leb, yes, that we could be able to take them. So there won't be any cost to the Lebanon School District. Actually, that additional funding through the ADM. I think I answered all of your questions. Oh, and also I spoke to the attorney. They recommend not to put this through the contract and to keep it separate through policy.
And some of the things that we discussed in policy, were things like if we admit us, like, should we review this every single year? Like, so will the teachers that have children in the district, will they have to decide will it be a decision year to year? Would we do it by school? Would we, if we commit the first time, are we making the commitment through grade 12? So we were sort of hashing around some of those kinds of things.
So on those lines, I noticed absent in the policy, it doesn't really seem to speak to that. So is the intent that the teachers are going to have to reapply every year for a spot, or once they are in K through, or if they come in at K, they're in K through 12 and they don't have to reapply every year? That wasn't it, and I actually feel like that should be addressed in there, that if they're like grandfathered once they're.
I think those are some of the parameters that I think our intent was to sort of set this up as a pilot and see sort of what happens, what interest, how many kids we're talking about. Because once kids get through, in many ways, our biggest question comes at our elementary schools because of our classroom sizes. Less of an issue once they get into middle school, especially into like 7th and 8th. So I think what policy felt like, it's a little too early to put all those things in place.
But I feel like, again, on that particular point though, I feel like that is important to the teacher deciding whether or not they want to bring the kid to school initially, because if they have a big unknown that, yes, I can have my kid entering kindergarten, but I don't know what I'm going to do with them in 2nd grade. To me, that's not really a benefit to the teacher, because you're leaving them with a big unknown up front when they're trying to make that important life decision.
Plus, I also feel like we know that it's more destabilizing to kids. If we're talking about the kids as the focus, it's more destabilizing to kids to say, hey, you're going to be here for these 2 years, and then, or even a pilot year. I mean, I feel like if we're going to do it, we need to do it, because I think that it is problematic for the teachers, as MJ pointed out, but I think it's also, from my perspective, problematic for the children. And I don't want to be responsible for saying to kids, you're going to be in school for 3 years, and then we don't have any space for you, and you have to go somewhere
Well,
else.
I think that right now, it would be hard if somebody started in kindergarten to guarantee them a spot through 4th grade, just because we don't know what classroom sizes will be.
But we also have the
But I don't know that
flexibility. We also have the flexibility built in that they can be in either elementary school. So we do have more flexibility than we would normally have. If we were saying you had to be in a certain elementary school, that would be problematic.
There's nothing that limits that or says that couldn't
Yeah.
happen. I don't know if we want to put that in.
Yeah, I was just going to, it goes off what you guys were saying. We have had the discussions around that being stressful for both the kids and the parents. Also, this being the students' social emotional cohort, and that being difficult if they were to be removed from it. I think it is a consideration. Also, difficulties of establishing that bond of that social emotional cohort if you don't know if you're going to be there next year. That is something policy committee members are considering. So.
Okay, John and then Tim.
So I would be in favor of this policy with no charge to staff. I think it's a great kind of opportunity to bring staff into our school. I work in a district that has a long-standing policy very similar to this one. I think there are benefits from a special ed perspective when the home district does continue to kind of flip those costs. What I would say is that from a staff perspective, staff members that live in Vermont, that can be challenging because if their student is identified in Vermont with special ed, it doesn't actually work very well for them in our district in New Hampshire. We do get staff members because of our policy in my school, and I know our staff appreciate it. And so as a retention tool and to attract candidates, I'm very much in favor of it. The only thing I would be concerned about is kind of the year-to-year piece. And I think you need to protect yourself as a district. You don't know what's going to happen, and you do sometimes have to say no because of space. And so I would be in favor of kind of having that kind of qualifier applying each year in there to protect us. And then I would also, put a qualifier in there about discipline, suspension, so forth and so on. Unfortunately, those are things that happen. But when you're taking a student for free to bring in a teacher, you can't then, expect a huge burden in regards to discipline. So those would be my adds.
We had discussed.
Hold on, sorry.
We had discussed potentially. Sorry.
Just a second. I said Tim next, and then
I didn't
and then you. All right.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's okay if you go in first. I was just going to advocate for considering charging something. If the other side of it is if you charge something, then that's a little bit of relief for the taxpayers. If there's 15 employees with 2 kids each, at $4,000, that's $120,000 of local revenue you don't have to raise. It's just, it doesn't, we do make a little money, but, it costs for the high school. Next year, the tuition rate, area tuition is $18,291, and we'll get, $4,000 or so from the state and pending the Condell lawsuit. So, feels like it's not immoral to ask for some money, but I just ask you to consider that. And I actually didn't even think what you thought about Vermont. I do think it's important that you consider nuances for Vermont because we don't get any revenue from Vermont. So a Vermont student that comes here, how do you say how much that costs us because the teacher's already in the classroom? But you get the point. There's no ADM. There's no revenue coming in for students from out of state.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. So we did at one point possibly also discuss rather than a year-to-year reapplication, one at the beginning of each kind of cohort, like
School transition.
School transition. Thank you. 1st grade, 5th grade, 9th grade, and so they'd be together for middle school, and maybe they have to switch schools for high school or something like that. Just as another option for things we were possibly discussing. Every year seems kind of a lot.
Other comments? So I think the question of the taxable question, benefit question, we do need to resolve. I think the question of Vermont, we need to at least have some language addressing that, because that is something that we know we have teachers on both sides of the border.
So language, and I don't understand the language for Vermont.
So from what I'm understanding is that, go ahead.
There's really no language, I don't think. I think it's an understanding, and I think it kind of goes both ways. You know, a staff member that, like if we do pass a policy like this, the staff member needs to understand that we're not going to create an IEP for that student. That student's going to have some sort of a support plan. They're not going to be in the system.
Right, so, I mean, I think.
Tuition. You don't get 4,000 for them, so.
Why don't, yeah, you could make it so they have to pay the ADM value. That's what I meant by.
That's, I mean,
Yeah.
like, we gotta work out whatever that language is.
It could be, you know, special ed costs incurred or something.
Do we have some sense about what we think about that, possible ideas for this case of Vermont?
So what does your policy say something?
Yeah, you charge for special ed costs for
Just-
out-of-state children.
You just
that are
charge the
coming.
parents.
Yep. So
But you
that's
don't-
their
you don't
tuition.
charge for tuition?
We don't charge tuition, but they have to pay any special ed costs. So if
Isn't
their
that what this,
child-
isn't that what our policy says even for New Hampshire? So it would
Yeah.
either be the district or the parent.
Right.
So that wouldn't
So-
necessarily need to change.
We just need to add.
Or parents, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I don't think we should charge like tuition to Vermont versus New Hampshire, right? Just because of the ADM piece. I don't think that would be a fair,
They can
fair
do New
act.
Hampshire.
Can
You
be,
could
though.
move from Plainfield.
I could
All right. Okay, so, what other question do we have? So I do agree also that we should put in, I think, this is me, I think we should make some mention of discipline suspensions or sort of
Attendance.
how we
too.
would handle that. I think that's important. I personally agree that I think reapplication every year is burdensome, and I would feel better about school transitions, although I would ultimately feel best about not having it, but I see John's point about that we do have to build in some sort of protection going forward because we don't know. I was going to ask one more question and now I've forgotten what that was. Are there any other questions or comments that people want to make? Go ahead, MJ.
Well, I guess I can see not charging Vermont residents to make it kind of parity between staff that lives in Vermont and New Hampshire. However, from a taxpayer standpoint, I do feel like you're increasing the tax burden to the residents because you're not getting the ADM. So maybe considering putting some kind of cap on the number of the students from Vermont that you would accept versus New Hampshire, just because there could be an added expense to the district at that point.
So, well, I think what we probably should do is like each thing that people want, we should, because it will be coming back for the second version, or another first reading with all the things, but I think what I'm hearing, there's enough sort of opinion, so maybe we start with like, do we want all those in favor of like transitions happening with the schools? Do you know, like vote?
So you want individual motions on all the pieces?
Yeah, I think that, because I think it's gonna be hard to, like, I don't think we know otherwise, sort of where we're headed.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we can do that. What did Jessica?
No, sorry, that's just my thinking hard face, it's not my very angry face, sorry.
Same thing.
No,
they're not the same. I know this, that's why I'm clarifying.
No, just
All right. Okay, so let's figure out what those things are that we are, that are under discussion. So, Go ahead.
Reapplication.
Sorry, the reapplication schedule, right?
Yep.
Okay, so someone can make a motion regarding some version of the reapplication schedule to which we can agree or disagree.
So I'll make a motion to set the reapplication schedule to be based on school
Transitions.
transitions.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Wendy, second by Tia. Additional discussion about transitions? Yes.
So the goal with so the options that we're looking in terms of application is that every year you have to reapply. That's sort of option one. Option two would be that you have to reapply at the beginning of the start of a new, school transition. Option three would be no reapplications. We
You're
just,
in.
we
You're
take
into
you
it.
and you're in until until your parent is no longer employed by the district or you graduate or whatever else.
Right.
And the thinking is that by having some kind of a reapplication process, we're protecting our, if someone can just lay out very cleanly for me,
I think if
we're
we
protecting
find
ourselves against
I
too
think
many
if
students.
Too many students
too
having
big a
it
pool.
actually cost something for the district. I think that's the.
So I'm having a hard time envisioning how this would play out though. Like say a kid comes in kindergarten and they're here for 6 years, and then we have a bunch of people move into the district and we're at our limit for their 7th grade year. We're just gonna say, or we guess in the case where they have to reapply every year, we would say, sorry, you're out. You can apply again next year, we'll see you then. In the case of the transition, where they apply at each transition, we would just do nothing because they're already in the middle school, so they're already in our program and we know it. And in the case where we have no guardrail, we just take them, we can do nothing.
I think we
Okay.
I think
I
in
get that.
policy, what we were where we will run into probably the most issues are in contained classrooms, where we have classroom sizes. Because once you get into 7th or even 6th grade, they start moving around. So there's more flexibility in class sizes. And in the high school, they have a varied schedule. So unless we had 10 teacher students wanting to take an English class, that is completely packed. But I don't know that we would ever run into that kind of issue. So I think if we anticipate where we might run into concerns, it's probably K through 5.
I thought you were looking at me like I wanted to say something. Another thinking face. So many thinking
Yours
faces.
is nicer than mine.
So many thinking faces.
But I don't know that, we don't really know, because we don't know,
And so the alternative would be that we could say, we're gonna create, an alternative way to do it would be, we could say, we're gonna have 15 slots for this. There's 15 slots for the students of teachers, and that's what we're gonna start. I'm just saying, these are the other ways that we could sort of put some kind of a limit on it, and then see what happens, see how many people apply for it, et cetera. It's essentially, it's functionally kind of a lottery system for.
And I think we talked about, because that's the way the policy was written initially. But we don't know where those 15 students would go, where they would be placed. And we thought it would create more ill will between the policy and our teachers if we were sorry, your name didn't get chosen. It also didn't seem like a fair policy or one that would really allow us to retain teachers. And that didn't seem like it would do what we wanted it to do. So it was sort of if we're going in, we should go all in.
Well, that's sort of that's where so in response to this particular motion, my response would be, for me personally, I think if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it. And that we do it K through 12 and we do it. Because I feel like, yes, we have some flexibility in our elementary schools and the way that they're divided right now. We have some flexibility in the fact that we have 2 schools and we're not at capped enrollment in either of those things. We know that when we got these 14 to 15 teachers who responded to the survey, the children that they were talking about were across the grade levels, right? We're not talking about 14 to 15 teachers who only had kindergartners, right? They were across the grade levels. So it seems to me that I would be in favor of having that we are accepting them K through 12. That's what I would.
I mean, and I think truthfully, we can also, like, the reality is, we can always rescind a policy. Like, if sometime, I'm not saying this is like the goal, but if in 10 years, I'm trying to lay out, it's helpful to me to lay out like worst case scenarios. What if we get into a situation where like we have so many students in Lebanon and we don't have any seats and blah, 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 like.
I don't think we'd rescind, I think we'd amend, right? Then it'd be lottery or
functionally
function.
the same thing. Like, we can always change a policy, but I guess it does feel to me like it starts to be kind of a, like, if the goal is essentially to value and recruit and retain teachers, then it does get to be kind of weak sauce the more that we sort of say like, well, it starts to get a little icky. Whereas if it becomes an issue, like if somehow we wind up with a major situation on our hands, we can amend a policy. I'm talking myself into sort of.
Good job. That's the purpose of this. Go ahead.
We can also close the door to new students. So if
Right.
classes start to get really full,
That's what I
we can just
mean.
be like, okay, this far, but maybe not this year. Maybe next year we'll reopen the door, or the year after, but right now those doors are closed.
So they're
I
not,
mean,
they're not moving people.
But those students we let in would just stay in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And I'm much more comfortable
I'm
with
not
that.
I'm not liking the idea of the reapplication process, to be honest. It just feels kind of crummy to be, because, and also what if their home district is on a different schedule in terms of like they go from K to 8 in one school, and so we're gonna really send them home for, it just feels weird and yucky.
I want to emphasize that we're talking about district employees. I know we're using the term teachers, but
Yes.
Yeah,
there's a
district
lot of,
employees.
2/3 of our employees are not teachers.
Teachers and staff.
And they all received that survey, so that number was
Yeah.
included for.
Give everyone. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to amend this to include reapplications at school transitions.
Do we,
We're gonna say, we can
do
say,
we want to move on with that, or does it feel like?
we can
vote on it.
We can vote on it. So, all those in favor of that motion, raise your hand.
Wait, so the motion is.
The motion
that we-
is that we include reapplications at school transition times.
Got it.
Okay, all those in favor of that motion, please indicate. All those against? Excellent. All right, so we're not doing that.
So I'll answer now. So we've got some clarity. So I'll make a motion to set the pay rate to 0. Or however we want to.
So I
To
think
not have a charge for tuition.
I'd like to wait until we get the tax question answered on that one, if that's possible.
I can't imagine that there's a top, but
There might be, but I guess like I would say, what if we change the motion to be, we amend it to functionally 0? Like if it turns out that there's a, like, we can get like, I think that will give them the direction that they need, while if there's some fancy footwork that we wind up needing to do, we can do fancy footwork. That's just fancy footwork.
right, I mean, I think because if our intention is 0 and we have to do
And
something.
we have to
for
charge them something else for some reason, then we can do that, but the intention is functionally 0.
Now, is this going to go to a second reading?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so
we have time.
we can say yes to
Yes.
this now, and
And then
if Kim
change
comes
it.
back and says,
Yes.
actually, there's a big
We're-
issue.
we're just trying to
we
give
can-
them-
Yeah.
I think it's the way we talk about the benefit, because
Yeah.
anybody can take a school choice. We can take any student if we want to at any time for no cost.
And because
That's-
it's not in their CBA, that's probably.
Right,
that's
that's the purview of the
Oh, okay.
board,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why we're not putting the CBA.
Yes.
But I still want to ask the question.
But the
I-
answer.
Please do ask the question.
Okay, so the motion is, which has not been seconded yet, that we reduce the pay rate to a functional 0, whatever
I'll second
that
that.
is. Okay, so motion by Wendy, second by Richard. Additional comment on this? No? Okay. Yeah, okay, all those in favor of the motion? Okay, excellent, unanimous. Great work, see, this is going so well.
And it
All
seemed
right.
like we were in agreement around language, around suspension or.
Discipline suspensions.
I don't actually, what is the language? I guess I'm.
There isn't any yet, so we
Like,
just.
I
just
would
that we
say
want- Just that
students-
we want some?
Yeah, students must comply with the expectations and standards of behavior as outlined in our policy regards to attendance and discipline.
Yeah, so we just add a line that they have to fulfill. So if they don't, what would happen if someone was suspended for discipline reasons, then the policy doesn't apply to them any longer.
Okay, it feels like we need a little more clarity around that, like, in terms of like what does happen if they, like, if the teacher, if the kid of a staff member gets suspended.
I don't
Now
want to
they
throw them
start.
out of school.
What?
I don't want to
Yeah, do we throw them out,
of
are we throwing them out of school, or are we saying their
No.
parents have to start paying? What are we
No, I
saying?
say they must comply, and I think at that point, if it's a pattern of behavior, the principals would sit down with those parents and talk about that, and if it became a continued pattern of behavior, that would come up to the superintendent, and we could have that discussion.
Okay.
This is good crime.
I know, I'm like, is this good crime? I hope it's good crime. We love good crime. And this is a estrogen heavy board, we're all about it, that's fine. So, you'll make us all cry. Okay, all right, so I think we're fine with, does that answer your question about discipline?
Everyone be quiet.
Does that answer your question about discipline suspension? Probably. Okay. All right. Before we devolve any further, do you have a question?
Well, yeah, so I'm just circling back. I don't feel like we closed the loop. Are we putting language in, though, that they can stay for the full 12? I don't want to stay silent. I mean, I'm not
putting
here
in
to say.
language around that because
We're not asking them
we're
to
not
reapply.
Yeah.
So we're just saying they can stay once they're in.
But I don't feel like that's implied. Like,
So you want to?
I want something a little more explicit in there to protect the teacher
I would
or
appreciate
the staff
some
member.
explicitness and not treating this as a gentleman's agreement.
Okay. We can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, okay. I don't think we have to.
Right, I just want to make
vote
sure
on
we
it.
circle. I didn't
Yeah.
know how we
Second
landed on
reading.
that one.
K-12 language, explicit K-12 language. Yes, Tim?
I need definition, I really want you guys to think about the definition of employee. I know it sounds, is it full-time, is it part-time? Technically, all of our coaches are employees, I don't think that's what your intent is. So I really need you to define, is this a full-time benefit? Is it offered to part-time employees? We have a lot of part-time employees, and we have lots of employees who are stipended coaches kind of thing,
Okay.
so.
That is a very good point. John, you
Yes,
were going to
and
say
I
something?
was going to add to that. I was going to bring that up because I didn't want this to come back for a second read and then go there. There's a lot of conversation in my experience around, do we mean teachers? Do we mean teachers and all staff? Do we mean teachers and administrators? Do we mean professional certificate holders? There's a lot of different lingo. And so I think we do need to be clear who we mean. And if we mean all, great. If we don't mean all, then we need to be very careful with that language, in my experience.
I guess I agree. I think, do we have, what is our precedent on other things? So when we specify, what are our groups that we're normally specifying for? Are we talking about, do we say full-time employees? Do we say?
Yeah, both the major CBAs have a definition of when you qualify for benefits. For teachers, you qualify at a prorated amount at 50%, at 0.5 FTE. For paras, support staff, you qualify it for full benefits at a 1.0 FTE. Anything less than that, you get a $1,500. So I don't think that works here. Bus drivers, some bus drivers get they get some provision towards healthcare if you're a full-time bus driver. Part-time bus drivers, and anything else part-time doesn't get anything. So I would advocate for being clear that this is a full-time benefit, whatever that means by the CBA you're in, or SAU staff. I just think it makes it a lot cleaner. And honestly, if it's open to like anybody who's technically an employee, you're gonna get a billion people coaching or whatever,
No, I think that's a really good point. So, yeah, I agree. I think full-time, it being a full-time benefit, following the definitions that we use in our CBAs seems clean. And more of what we.
Full-time benefit or benefit eligible? Is that a difference in your world? Because you just said you said teachers get a reduced, they're benefit eligible at 0.5, but they get it at a reduced rate or higher cost sharing, so are you trying to exclude that, or?
Yeah, I was trying to exclude someone who might be a half-time
Yeah.
music teacher, for example.
So full-time.
If you move to a full-time, you get it. That's just my thought, though.
I think that feels right, like particularly as a sort of like in terms of the goal of what we're trying to do. The only thing I would say is that I wonder, in some other cases, in policy, you can put in a thing that sort of providing for a, like a review, superintendent's review or something, if there's, like, if we wind up with a class of people that we really need, if we wind up needing, if we don't have any bus drivers and we really need a bus, like, that's another class of sort of employee that I know that we've struggled sometimes to keep and retain, like, we might want to extend it, and, or maybe we want to create a pathway for people in those positions to ask for it as a benefit or something. I could see that potentially.
Seems good. There's usually a path to sort of petition the superintendent.
Petition, like petitioning for the benefit or something. I don't know, maybe that gets us into murky waters that we don't want to go into.
Well, I think, I wonder if we just start with the full-time, see sort of where we're at.
And amend.
Sure.
And then,
Yeah, sure.
So that, like our .8 teachers, they would not,
That would be full-time.
that would be full.
Because they get, at .8, you get full-time benefits.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Does that make sense? We feel,
What's the breakdown just in terms, like, I mean, just give me some sense of scale of like how many people are at, 1.0 and how many are at .8 in terms of like numbers, so just in my head.
I'd say probably 90% of our staff are .8 or more full-time. We have a few teachers at .8.
Yeah.
Okay. Almost all, like probably 95% of our LEA and LSS are full-time. Even our custodians are all full-time, but we do have some, we have a couple of part-time sort of fill-in custodians, and it's, at these positions, and I wouldn't want to offer this to them. It's, we bring you in occasionally.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that feels right.
okay. Does that make sense, Wendy, for? Yeah, okay. So,
did you get Wendy?
Yeah. So we are, what was it, do we have a motion on the table? No. So
I think we're ready to move
this to second
forward
reading
to
with
a second reading
emendations.
with the language changes.
Yeah.
And I think if we get to that point, if we get to the second reading and there's still lots of questions or concerns, we can just bring it back again for a second reading before we approve it.
But yeah, so we have a couple outstanding language problems and some more additional questions for legal. Okay. All right. So we are going to, the motion is, or can I get a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion to move policy GJFAB for a second reading with the modifications in language as we've discussed.
Okay. Second by Tia. Any additional discussion? No? All right. All those in favor? Okay. Great. Thank you. Moving on.
I was just queuing up Tyler for our outdoor education.
Yes.
And our principals.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break while we set up some tech, and we'll be back at 7:50. Right. We're going to move on to back down to what was new business A, which is the presentation on outdoor education by the principals. I'm going to move out from under this.
So I have 3 slides. Can I start? Hi, I'm Katie Roach. I'm the principal at Mount Lebanon School. So I have 3 different slides. One is words and then some other pictures. And sorry, they're not side by side. But so I wanted to I actually flipped it to what we did last year and then what we currently do this year. Because last year we had an enrichment teacher that was able to provide a lot of outdoor education experiences, and that's shown in one of the slides. And so we did field trips, of course. I'm going to talk about last year first. Gardening, snowshoeing, learning about bird nests in the outdoor classroom. She studied worms. She made rain art with kids. We have 4 WENs. We did the Watershed Congress, trout release, and many, many more. And I presented those last year. This year, we don't have an enrichment teacher. And so we're a little bit more limited in what we do for outdoor education. So I did pilot Nordic Rocks this year, and so we had cross-country ski, so we had cross-country skiing. The snow was not awesome for that. But we did get the kids out through PE, and then I pulled out the skis for recess, and we were able to do that. But we only had about a couple weeks, but now we have the skis, and it was a grant. So it's fun. Hopefully next year we'll have better cross-country skiing. We also continue all our field trips that tend to be outdoors. I think every grade level goes to VENS. That seems to be a popular one, and I had some pictures for you guys to look at. The trout release at Mount Leb, we go to the Canaan Lake to do that, and that's pretty fun. There's a picture in there about that. And then both schools come together at Storrs Hill and do the Watershed Congress, which we haven't done yet, but it's on the agenda, and you guys should come see it because it's pretty incredible. I went for the first time last year, and I was very impressed with all the different stations and how much I learned about water runoff myself and why I shouldn't, I don't know, put certain thing, like Miracle-Gro is not really good. Just FYI, sorry. I learned all about that. And then, of course, we do 4 WENs at Mount Leb. We do it 4 times a year. And that if the weather works, we have outdoor 4 WENs. Like we've studied birds this year, and we just are finishing the unit on bees. So we try to get the kids outdoors. None of the teachers feel like there's a whole lot of time for them to add to their planning and curriculum that they have to follow otherwise. So that's what we do now. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I know
we have pictures. We have pictures. Thanks. Yeah.
There's the bank. There's the space on the bank that used to be used as an outdoor
Yes,
classroom.
we do have that as an outdoor classroom. So it's not as used as much this year, to be honest. I went to the first grade teacher and I was like, Miss Christie, how often do you get out to the outdoor classroom? And she tried to go, we had one teacher we had 2 different teachers that were outdoor teacher certified that have left. And then Christy Dannon, or Lucier, we call her Miss Christie. She last year she tried to get out there a lot, but this year with the new math curriculum takes quite a bit of time, and she doesn't get out there regularly as much as she used to do. So it's still there, it's still open, it's not as used by the classroom teachers now. And so those are some things that I pulled from what we used to do last year. And you can see the outdoor classroom with the kids all in the, under the trees, the tree canopy. And then there's another slide. Someone wants to flip to the next. Great. And that's this year, VENS, just so you guys could see what they do for bees. And then the Watershed Congress, and a really great picture of a student learning to cross-country ski. That's actually was a pretty incredible program to bring. So,
what's the outdoor teacher certification?
I don't exactly know what it is. If you Marion Cross has a pretty robust outdoor teacher education. I know when Christina Wild was here, she got certified in it. And I don't know exactly what you have to do, to be honest with you, Jessica. I do know that I don't have anyone certified in it right now.
Any other questions? Okay.
What happened to the enrichment teacher? Sorry, I just.
So we had asked to go to like a 0.8 and it stayed at a 0.4, and she actually became a third grade teacher at Sky Te2. So she's a third grade teacher now, and then it stayed open as a 0.4, and I tried to increase it to a 0.8 the last year.
What, so that I understand this, we call it just help me understand the terminology, and like when I look in the budget and I see, what do I see for I just see enrichment teacher, not
Yes,
like
actually
third grade
earlier this year,
teacher
we say enrichment teacher. It
we
was
say
a 0.4.
enrichment teacher, and then what are the other functions of an enrichment teacher? Like what do they do?
So it has gone through a vast variety of I can't think of the right word, but we've used it for multiple different ways. We used to use it for, I can't even think of the word this late, not to extend, is that the right word? Extend learning, no, it's not the right word. Accelerate students. We originally had it to accelerate students. That's when the position was originally created like 7 years ago. And then, I'll try to make this quick, and then, so then Sky Te2 did that as a 0.4, and then when I became the interim principal, I asked if it could be increased to really provide more enrichment activities, because I was noticing students needed to be able to try to get outdoors a lot during that time, and I was like, can we please, right after COVID, get kids outside learning, working with their hands, and we were able to increase that because I was the only one as an administrator that year, and I don't know if they did it. It was great. And so then Sky just was noticing a lot of successes and background knowledge that kids could gain and experiences that it didn't have. So then the next year she went back down to a 0.4 because that's what it had originally, it had always been budgeted as. And she just did it for enrichment, and we voted to do enrichment for all and try to figure out how to get the kids what they needed within the regular class. And she provided enrichment for all grades, and it was kind of like a 30-minute enrichment time that was provided. And so then this year, we knew we needed to still be able to do, and we wanted to do enrichment for all, but we also knew that we had a bunch of students that needed more STEM, deeper dive into some of the math practices or math curriculum. And so I tried to get it to a 0.8. I thought, not this year, like last year, we do a budget so early. And then, but the board felt that we needed to be consistent across both sides of town, so it was not approved. So that's where we are.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next slide. That's good?
Hi, I'm Leah Whelan, principal of Hanover Street School. So I would say that Katie's slide that was for this year is quite similar to what we do at Hanover Street School. We do not have the cross-country ski program. We do, when there's snow, snowshoeing through PE. One of the things that we do spend a lot of time, we do have a fairly robust garden program, thanks to a bunch of folks that are on staff that have taken this on as volunteers. As well, so we have pollinator garden. We also have vegetable garden, which was great fun when I started this fall because they did harvest. And thanks to Cafe Services, they actually used it and served the kids all kinds of food from the garden, which was fabulous. Let's see, so the same, I'm gonna go really fast because a lot of it's a repeat. So we also do 4 Winds, which is lovely, outside when we can. Through PE, we do a bunch of things outside. Since we're connected to the high school, of course, if they're available, we can coordinate to use some of their spaces. So we use the track and we can use the ropes course area out in the back there. We did add some picnic tables out front. In the fall, they're used all the time, which is kind of nice. We do have a big gazebo that's covered, which offers shade. I don't notice it being used that often, to be honest. But it's not set up as a classroom. It's really just more an outdoor space when they're out for recess. And then we use the outdoor spaces for all kinds of events. Any questions?
You also have, you're part of the Watershed Congress and the.
Yeah, a lot of the same things that she had on her list we do as well, and they work really well across the schools they do the trout, they do the Watershed Congress, yeah, same.
And Katie, you said that Four Winds is 4 times a year for you?
Yes.
And it's monthly or is it still 6 times a year for Hanover Street? Okay.
Yeah, so we have some different modules that they do. They're in a lot, it's fabulous. The PTO staff's it, and it's amazing.
Any other questions for Leah? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hello, I'm Tom Harkins. I'm the principal at Lebanon Middle School. I'm learning a lot about what the outdoor education has been at the middle school and what's going on now. So on the list there we have trails. So I recently learned that there's a whole network of trails through the parking lot over the little knoll there where they were created many years ago by some teachers that were interested in doing that kind of thing. And they've not been tended to recently, but there's a lot of interest in reviving that and getting back out there. There were benches that were donated by a group in Hartford, I'm not quite sure who, but our shop teacher, Mr. Shackner, has talked about perhaps building some as part of a project for some of the kids to do. We have Unity Day, which is where each team does an activity in the fall to unite the teams, whether it's the 5th, the 6th, or 3 of our 7th and 8th grade teams. And that's already started planning for next year. We have people go to the Heartland Dam. Previously have gone to Sunapee, but I think they're going to go do a hike this year. The 5th grade has traditionally gone to the CCBA, but is now going to stick at the school. 6th grade is going somewhere else. Can't remember quite where right now, but it's somewhere outdoors. We do have our roof garden, which you can see that top left picture is something that's a great looking space, but not actually very practical right now. We've talked a lot about turning it into something more practical. Nothing really can grow up there because the soil is too shallow and it's too hot with the white reflecting heat from the roof, which it looks wonderful, but we're in lots of different conversations. It's on a number of lists of things to try to figure out so that it can be more used by students. But you can see teachers every once in a while just walk by and teachers will be out there with small groups of people. It's just not quite usable by a whole class right now. Outside lunches, we do have our picnic tables out front there on the bottom left. You can see any day since it's been halfway decent weather, we got the tables out front and kids are out there every day. It's very, very popular and it's great. Makes it quieter in the cafeteria and nice outside, of course, to eat outside. We have a number of pictures from art classes going outside. There's some bug art in the top right picture. Some sort of a pine cone creation there in the bottom right, and then a spray painting activity. So Mr. McQueen is one of our art teachers who's actually retiring this year, but he had a lot to do with building the trails. He's very interested in outdoor education. And PE, of course, takes their kids out anytime they can. We also have field day coming up here at the end of the year. But that's what I got for you tonight. Any questions?
How often do they get up to the field for like recesses and stuff like that?
Every day that it's okay and not too muddy. As you probably know, and a lot of you know, the irrigation up there is kind of not so great. So it stays muddier there longer than it stays muddier on other like fields that you might find. And I mean, and even the level of muddy, like lacrosse was up there practicing this year before we let the kids go up there because we don't want them trekking mud and slop throughout the whole school. So they're up there every day now. Oh well, probably not now tomorrow because it rained again today. But any chance we check it. Tomorrow it won't be usable. But any day where it's questionable, we'll go look. And if it's able to, they love going up there. It's a great spot when it's dry enough.
Any questions for Tom? Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Here you go, folks. This is the next slide you'll see from the high school is not the most informative one.
And I have these printed out for them in the packet too. That
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yep,
I'm not sure I sent you that.
Okay.
We go on a 9th grade hike. The next year will be our 10th year, and we hike Mount Kearsarge together, and that's a good day. Outdoor education, maybe, but at least it's a bonding experience. What you have in do we have another slide? That's a great shot of our drone class taking a picture of the high school. Drone piloting has become a popular I'm just wondering, Amy, is there another slide? Ah, there it is. I'm not sure you can tell much from that, but as you can see, we get out when we can. I have a vantage point outside my window, and so our kind of partially grass, partially dirt courtyard, which I hope will fill in nicely. We have plans, possibly, if we can find the funding, for an outdoor classroom, a more formal destination point that people can gather under, and even perhaps have an AP calculus class there if it's nice out. We have a number of opportunities for students in science classes to get outside, and those are listed there. Drone piloting is always outside when they can be, even in weather that is less than nice. And you see students enrolled in photography roaming the school grounds often. Our really only formal outdoor education experience is in teen roles when they're on the ropes course. It's a semester-long class, so you spend 7 weeks if you have teen roles in the fall outdoors, and you do the same second semester. We have team building and human performance who often use the outside when they can. So there's a constant stream of kids leaving the gym, leaving that room 17 where Take Flight is taking place. That's our teen roles health classroom, and they'll go out and access the outdoors in a formal way, where the smattering of classes will experience the outdoors, but relatively limited. You go to a school like Thetford, which we've had the chance to visit. It's a more dynamic outdoor educational experience, but one that we haven't thought too much about with all that we have going on.
Any questions for Ian? Okay. Thank you.
Just one question, Tim. I know in finance and facilities, when we're talking about the land that we own, we do, and I think Mary has talked about this before, there is a plot of land that used to be some kind of outdoor education.
Yeah.
What state is that in, or?
Well, it's been years since I've been out there, but I believe it's in, well, at least it's a trail network over, it butts up against Dartmouth-Hitchcock. It's a big, huge area. Part of it's owned by Dartmouth, and part of it's owned by, a little bit it's owned by us. And then Upper Valley Land Trust, I think. And there's an outdoor education spot in there. I don't know that specific spot. The trails are in really good shape. They're used by mountain bikers and maintained by mountain bikers. Yeah, forgot about that.
We used to use it a lot for especially our insect hunts and working with leaves and trees.
So you used to bus over there from the elementary schools and then spend time there? Is that what?
The only problem was the ticks.
Yeah.
That was a big problem.
I think I know we've got a lot on our agenda. Just to make a brief comment about this, I really appreciate the presentation. I appreciate the principals coming in, though I'm sorry that it's so late for them. But I think it feels to me like the schools have a lot on their plates, and the teachers have a lot on their plates, and they have a lot of things that they need to do, and it would, I think it would be great for this board to consider the benefits of a stronger focus on a dynamic curriculum for our students that incorporates some more outside the box thinking in terms of this area, because there are a lot of benefits to students. There's a lot of benefit to staff. There's a lot of benefits in terms of bringing people's outside interests into the classroom. I think these are actually like pretty important topics, and as much as I appreciate the presentation, I am it strikes me that we do have quite a limited program, and it would, I think, be a great thing for us to think about how to expand it and creative ways to do that and what that might look like. I think that I'd like to see us consider outdoor education and what that means to the Lebanon School District going forward, and that's something we can talk about more, but I think that it's very limited here right now.
And I think that would probably be a conversation that would be started in EC particularly because we're talking about adopting and have adopted curriculum that are quite labor intensive already, and so what will be the balance of doing those things and balancing the benefits of outdoor education and the benefits of these curriculum. I think there's a lot of space there that we need to talk about.
And perhaps making sure that we aren't actually looking at these things as being in opposition to each
Exactly,
other necessarily,
exactly.
because I think that can be a real mistake, that to sort of see outdoor education as a sort of add-on stuck on top of the other things kids are supposed to be learning.
Right.
I think that that's an error that.
I mean, like, how do we integrate is probably the
Yeah,
better,
sort of, and so I think I'm interested in, particularly in the outdoor teacher certifications, because I could see that sort of maybe being a way that we could sort of, assist.
We can add it to our agenda that we just barely talked about for our plan for the following year.
Thank you.
All right, great, thanks. Okay, that moves on to new business B, discussion of the early childhood classroom at Hanover Street School.
Tyler's queuing me up. Before we begin our presentation, I hope you enjoyed the tour of our facilities. I want to thank our community for the ongoing support of our district's learning spaces. This week, I've had the opportunity to review past minutes and proposals regarding the construction at Lebanon High School, Mount Leb School, and Hanover Street School. Over time, several goals have been identified for the Hanover Street School, including the need for additional classroom space, a stage, expansion of the special service areas, designated drop-off areas, fixed stairwells, and a remodeled library. Fortunately, we have been able to address many of these concerns through our recently approved project. Additionally, with the interest earned, we've been able to further enhance our facilities, including adding new nursing spaces and bathroom spaces. However, during this budget season and reviewing current enrollments, it was determined that we could reduce one classroom at Hanover Street School. Our class sizes are projected to remain steady over the next several years with no immediate need for additional classroom space. I have started to include enrollment reports within your board packet. I will be giving you those monthly so you can see live information about where we are classroom by classroom, and then at the middle school by grade level.
And is there any way that we can see some sort of trend line? So
We have a historical data.
Historical data?
It would be great to be able to see that as we get these reports.
We have it in the annual reports. It's in the
Annual reports,
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we can put it together from there too. I know as we migrated to Alma, so I was wondering from that.
And I think it's on the state sites too.
But they don't know how far back.
Like
Yeah.
October 1st enrollments.
Right, okay, perfect. As mentioned in our previous meeting, the City of Lebanon and our employees are facing challenges with the lack of childcare options. So we began to look and explore that with potentially thinking that we might have an open space. We started by exploring potential partnerships to address this need, especially as the city considers building a larger center near the airport. Tonight, we have a preliminary proposal and concept to share with you for review and feedback. So I'm going to invite up Principal Whalen to discuss this concept and answer any questions for you at this point. So thank you.
All right. So I think it'll help that you took a tour of the building, because there's some maps, because a lot of it has to do with space and space utilization. So we tried to put together, Amy and I worked on putting together what we think will answer a bunch of the questions, and then we can have a robust discussion and see where we get. I should probably put my bias just out there right away, which is that I am a huge, huge proponent of early childhood. The more we can do, the sooner we can do it. Financially for a district, all the studies show the more you invest young, the better it is in long term. So I'm just putting it out there. I also grew up with a child care center in my house when I was a child. So it's just so you know where I'm coming from. All right, so the goal that started this whole thing is to help the community and staff by supporting it in the sense by by adding an addition of early childhood classroom. So any spots or additional spots we don't have in this area. We wanted to find a way to do this, which did not have a huge impact on the district in terms of either for the staff in the building, students in the building, the physical space itself, and of course, thinking of Tim, the budget. All right, so I'm going to roll you into the next one. I don't know who's got the little... We have tons of details, so do ask. We tried to put enough in to give you a sense but not overwhelm you, because again, we're just trying to get a sense of where you, as a board, feel about this idea. So we've been talking to the New Hampshire Boys and Girls Club. They run a number of early childhood as well centers, as well as the ones you think of them in terms of like after school and preschool care. But they also run a bunch of these centers all the way from infants all the way through pre-K age. So what we are proposing is to start with just one classroom. We would not do infant care. The ratios, it's desperately needed, but that's not what we're talking about. The ratios for how many kids you can have per adult are different when you get to the infant age. So we're talking about a mix of above infants, so it's 2, 3, and 4. 15 students would be the max for the room. It would be a full day program. So typically they are open 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. for working parents. So that's what we are thinking the times would be. It would be year round, but not on snow days. That gets to be a problem with things like shoveling and whatnot. If we're not open and we don't want people on the roads, then we probably would not be open on snow days. So they would not open either. So the idea is that this would be run by them at a high level. They're going to manage it. The employees are theirs. They bill the parents. They collect from the parents. They manage the whole thing, but we give them space so that they can afford to do this, which is one of the issues you have if you're trying to keep open a child care center. The idea on our side is that staff would have first priority. If there are more staff, which we'll find out, if there are more staff that need it than there are spots, I presume we'd have to do something like a lottery to keep it fair. If we don't fill all the spots with staff, our proposal would be that we would then open it for our community. The pricing will be set, it'll be like a market rate price, so it'll be set by New Hampshire Boys and Girls Club. And yeah, so if you go back just one. This page has a lot more detail. Mostly I put it in so you could look at it later if you wanted, but I wanted you to know that they currently run, if you go to their website, they do run a bunch of centers all across the state. They use a curriculum that they pull from the New Hampshire Early Learning Standards, and I did link it so you can look at that. It's a play-based, it's called like an emergent curriculum because of their age. And another thing that I know comes up for a lot of people is the issues around security. So we'll have people who aren't our employees in the building, and we will have parents who may or may not be our staff members. Probably the bulk will be, but maybe they won't use all the spots, so we could have other community members. So they do have a very robust, they call it the member tracking system, and it tracks everything from parents who, you know, the coming and going of the parents, but also the children as well as the staff, because they have to be very careful with all the rules and regulations around how often, you know, can you have a one-on-one, how often you have to be in the, by one-on-one I mean the ratio between their staff and their students. So they have a lot of tracking, both electronically, codes for doors, they do codes that are different for each parent, so they can see who's come and who's gone and things like that. And then you can get a better sense if you go to their website, but you can see all the different places that they've done it. And each of these buildings and places has a link, so you can go in and see what age they serve, how many, what the locations are, that sort of thing. So that one's got a lot of detail, but we won't go into each of the different ones. So clearly the reason that this has come up is a couple things. Staff retention. We have a lot of staff who are really struggling with daycare. I know many of the union members have talked to me about they do get a lot of phone calls because if they have a daycare hiccup and your daycare closes, then it becomes really hard for staff to come to work. So it's not only retention, but also an increase. I would like to see fewer absences that have to do with childcare, but when you don't have a choice, you don't have a choice. So also it is better for us as a district. I think the more school kids get younger, the better it is when they enter. And there's another conversation around this with the New Hampshire Boys and Girls Club. If we did want to expand after school care, we currently do have it, but they're full. Like by the time school opened, the list was already full for after school care. We don't know if that organization would like to expand, if they can get more space. But if not, the Boys and Girls Club are certainly interested in doing that as well. And I think if we've got a wait list, we should try and find ways to help our parents with after school care as well. So a couple things when you start to think, and you just interrupt me as I go, otherwise I'm going to keep rolling and then take questions. Couple things about the budget. So I wanted to just make sure it was really clear that we are not talking in this proposal about employing people. So the New Hampshire Boys and Girls Club, they will do the employment, so we're not bringing on staff into the district. We're not responsible for billing parents and doing collections and any of that. That is run by the Boys and Girls Club. We also are not responsible for doing construction for them or renovation for them that is what they do. We do have some costs that we're going to incur that we recognize right away. There may be others we haven't thought of, but certainly they have asked, and we have not gotten far enough down the process to know what will go in. If we continue, we'll put in place these things in a memorandum of understanding just to make sure we're all on the same page. One of the things we've discussed is custodial service for the room every night. So if that may be something that ends up in our, we don't know, we'd have to see what we would agree to, but that is one of the things on the table. The other thing I thought of was utilities. So I don't know if that's something we would, right, we've got, if we have days when we're not in school but they're open and they're using our building, how does that work? So Amy?
Leah, I did speak with Tim today, just seeing if he could kind of come up with a number, what we thought for that, and then Tim kind of explained the buildings are constantly being cleaned and used on custodian anyway, so I'll let Tim explain that.
The idea is that it very much work like our already existing for years, the after-school program, and so they use their space, we clean their space. We don't charge them. It's part of the building. If it wasn't being used for this, theoretically it'd be used for the teacher they used to be in there. So I don't see, I mean, we can assess it as, if we go down this road, you guys approve it, and a year in, it looks like we're somehow, I don't even know how I would quantify that it's costing us a lot of money, but it's really just the space that we already have. And so, and as far as utilities, and we don't have air conditioning, so in the summertime, I don't see that being different either. We heat our buildings, obviously, even during school break, we do turn it down. So I guess theoretically, instead of being 62, we're going to keep it 68. But I don't even see a big difference in utilities either, because it's not like our buildings are closed during break. There's still things going on, including our staff working now.
Yeah, I guess that's a question on that. So over like summer break and stuff, did the custodians work like a night shift though, or do they switch to a day shift? So is there like a differential that would be paid in this summer?
We bring on our night custodians during the day, during the summer, but we don't, because we tell them to come in during the day instead, we don't take the differential away. So we would have to probably jigger with our staffing, so some person is working, in the evening instead of just a day shift. But they don't lose a differential, so again, we're already incurring that.
I think one of the biggest concerns that I know people have is regarding the space. So we wanted to put up some maps, and again, hoping that when you did the walk around, that it will help a little bit with this. I'm used to having a pointer to be able to, so I may head up there and point. But if you, so the first thing I want everyone to know is that every classroom in our building next year, because it's not true this year, will have a new renovated space, which is fabulous, because our second grade is not, we got some teachers in older rooms, but they will not be next year. So if you just picture, I did not put the second story on here yet, but the fourth grade is up, their rooms are renovated, they'll stay in that space. The KN1 rooms are right where they are now. They're also renovated spaces. They each have their own bathroom in them. The second, so if you look at this, the one that goes across this way is where second grade is now. Those are the old rooms that still have carpet. All of those second grade teachers will move down where you can see second. Those are the 4 new rooms we went to look at. And then third grade will be on the side where it says 333. So all the teachers next year will be in new spaces. And if you go to the next slide. So then what's happened is, as a staff, we're trying to figure out where to move people, because now, thank you to the community, we have a building where we can get people out of some very tight spots they're in this year. So what I tried to do was highlight in yellow all of the spaces that will be open next year. So again, looking at the same kind of shape that we looked at on the first floor. So those big rooms going on the main hallway. So you do walk into the building, in case you're not following me from this side, you walk in and that's the main hallway there with all the yellow. Those are the 4 rooms that second grade has now that they will be out of next year. We also have a classroom as you walk down the third grade hallway that's open. And we will also have a half a classroom, is what it looks like square footage wise. That's also highlighted in yellow, that will be open. And then upstairs, which is why I added the second floor key, we will have an open room upstairs. Now, when I say open, the next slide will explain the people that then need to go in these open spaces. I don't want you to think there's going to be these big empty rooms. It's just that we're not sure exactly which person's going in which room. So I've done first, all the yellow is open. A second floor is easier to think about. If you realize we have 1 open room in yellow, it will probably be the staff room. The staff at the moment is telling me they'd like to move upstairs. There's running water there, which is helpful, in a staff room where we eat lunch. So assuming that happens, you can think of second floor as being the way it is now and full. All right, so next slide will take us back. Okay, so now on the first floor, we've had some teachers who've been working in tighter quarters than we'd like. And so if you think of the fact that we have these 4 new rooms that I put the little red bubble around, the teachers that are going to go in those rooms, again, just not sure which ones yet. So I have, there are 4 reading teachers. There are 2 SLP speech, they provide speech services. There is, and then there's a tech para, and then we have a full-time OT, and we also have a part-time OT and a super part-time, like a half a day, 1 day a week, PT as well. At the moment, so you can envision what we're trying to fix, until the renovation, there's a room upstairs that has OT folks and speech. And so that's really not great. So that's one of the things that we wanted to fix in the renovation. So what we are thinking as we look at this is that PT, OT, and each of these are full-size classrooms. So it's a lot of space because you saw them. So PT, OT would probably be in a separate room from so that's one room, from our 2 SLPs, so they'll have a separate room. And then the 4 reading teachers would like to spread out a little bit, so they may be in 2 rooms. So we'd have 2 reading teachers in each room. And that gets me to my 4 rooms. I'm just not sure who's going where yet. There's some, everyone's juggling a little bit. And then we currently have a para who does technology for us. She is literally in a closet. So she's very excited. She will be in one of those 4 rooms. Again, we're not sure which. It may be the one attached to the library because she spends a lot of time working with the librarian. Okay, so that leaves us the non-bubbled in red spaces to figure out what we would like to do with. So if you go to the next slide. So this is what I'm calling the open spaces. So I'm no longer counting my 4 second grade rooms, the old ones, because I think we're going to be filling them with the people we just talked about. So the space that we have left in the room, in the building, so that strange thing sticking up in yellow is the blue room where you were. It's going to be a little different shape. It's no longer a rectangle when we're done because the nurse's expansion is the thing that you see sort of bumping into it. But it's still a lot of space, so that is available. We also, across the hall from it, you can see that slice of yellow. That's the room that PT is in currently, as well as a counselor who comes in a day a week. So that will also be available. A full classroom, that's the old one that's kind of across from the art room near the main office, and the half a room down the hall. So some of the things we've thought about because we have this luxury now of figuring out how we can make this work a little better. Currently the conference room is in the AP's office. That's not great for lots of reasons, so we will probably take one of these spaces for a conference room. We are thinking that PT room, so the small one that's across from the main office, we probably will want, even if we have a staff room upstairs that has copiers and whatnot, we will probably want a small staff work area, which will have the downstairs copier and the downstairs mailboxes, whatnot. I don't know if that will stay in the blue room. That's one of the things we've talked about. And we don't know, there's been some discussion, we have 3 special educators that share a room upstairs, so there's certainly space there, but if we have the luxury of space, there's a conversation, would one of them want to move downstairs and serve K1 and get closer physically to them? Not sure. We also have, I didn't highlight it, but there's another space upstairs that will be left empty by us moving the 4 reading teachers downstairs. So if the special educators do want to spread out, they're thinking now, they told me today, they'd probably rather just take that extra space on the 2nd floor. All right. So this leads us to, if we were to put in an early childcare room, our space is the one, I just blew up the map you looked at so we can look at we're sort of seeing the main office. The one in this light green is where we would put the 1 early childhood room. It's a good room for the reasons that it is close to the front door, which means people are not going all over the building. They're just coming in, going there, and leaving. It's also near a bathroom. The issue with the bathroom for early childhood is when they don't need, the requirement isn't a private bathroom, but when they have a child in there, there can't be other children in there. And so we needed to find a room that was easy to access, a bathroom that wouldn't, be a problem for other people in the building. And so if you, I tried to, it's in green, but we realized it doesn't show up on the slide, so I put a little red kind of bubbling thing around it. There's actually an individual bathroom in the assistant principal's office that we have not used once this year, because we all just use the big open ones across the hall. And so what we are thinking is that that would be the bathroom that we would then just dedicate to preschool. And there are a couple things we can do. You can't really see on the red line, but there's in the AP, so the AP room now has a conference room in it. So that conference table is going out and into that little yellow room that's above the green room. So that AP office is now much bigger than it needs to be. And so if we can, the ideal thing would be just to put in the, I was showing Amy today, there's like a little, if we can put like a 90-degree right angle like this in it, and then there would be privacy as well. If not, we can put a partition up. So the con of the space, of course, is it would be lovely if there were a bathroom in the green room. But that's something that would be, we could not do that by fall. That would have to be a year from now if we went ahead. So in the meantime, we need a one-year solution. I did make a note that in terms of what's required, there is minimal student interaction required because of where we place the room, but I didn't want to leave people with the impression that that's what I want. So I just added the little note in a bunch of places saying, although it's not required, I suspect that we may want to do that. There's all kinds of benefits from interactions with the kids and the little kids, but at least that would be up to us. That's not a requirement or in the proposal. That would just be whatever people think. And if you go to the next slide, for those of you who couldn't make the tour, so that's a picture of the room, and then a very unattractive picture of a toilet, but that is the bathroom that's in the AP room.
So I have two questions. One, will that room meet their requirement? Because I know the state usually has a lot of requirements for square footage per child for 15 children. So will that meet the square footage for 15 children?
Yeah, so we've got, you need about 40 square feet per child. So the 15 children max, that needs about 600 square feet. And we've got an extra 200 to 300 square feet in the room, which is lovely.
And that room, though, has no running water.
It does. So it doesn't have a bathroom, but it does have running water and a sink, which is really important because we know they're going to hopefully be washing their hands all the time. So yeah, it has running water, but it does not have a toilet. Now there is one other impact about space that I didn't want to leave out, which is that when you're doing an early childhood program, we do need outside play space for them, and the things you put in there are for younger children. And so we would have to dedicate a space, and it's not great, but thanks to the high school, some of their kids went out and took a drone picture for me. That's the picture of the school with the new renovation, because I did it recently, and I highlighted in red. You can see the little weird red spot. That's the thinking in terms of where everyone thinks would be sort of out of the way and private enough that they would be off there. So the New Hampshire Boys and Girls Club would be responsible and would have to put in an early childhood playground. It doesn't have to be very big, but it has much smaller and different safety rules. So that was the impact on space, the things I was thinking of. Impact on staff is not huge because the Boys and Girls Club will manage it all. Parents will have separate door codes, so we can use codes if we don't want to add 15 parents buzzing to something that the admin assistants have to deal with. They could just use their codes, but they will be coming in the front door, so we do have all that security if we prefer to do it that way. And again, there are no requirements in the proposal or from the Boys and Girls Club for the younger kids in the building to use art or music or PE or library or the cafeteria, or for their folks to use the staff room. Those are things that we would maybe want to offer or not want to offer, but it's up to us. Yeah?
I have another question. So focusing on security and door code. So can we get into the weeds a little bit there? Because I know we've had a lot of problems this year with the rec department and door codes and sharing of door codes, and have to constantly change the door codes because it seems like everybody knows them and people pass the door codes on. So especially if they're open till 6 at night, did their door code shut off at 6 at night, so then they don't
Yep.
have access to the school after, or?
They seem really amenable to what we want to do. I think one of the things that we might consider is with where this room is located, it might be that we would prefer for them not to use door codes and to go in the way all of the rest of the community does when they enter our building. And it could be that the door codes only are activated for off hours when our kids are in the buildings, which would be from 3:30 to 6, and from maybe 7 to 7:30. So we could do it that way. They seemed very amenable, so I think we would probably, they'd be comfortable with whatever, because they're clearly going to be as concerned as we are with safety, so.
Yeah, we have great ability with our access system to program things for a specific way. Now, I can't program someone to not share their code, so I don't know how to overcome that. You know, everybody, if you have a team and the code is 1, 2, 3, 4, so everybody uses 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be, if we give one code to one family, I don't think the sharing would be as much, but we certainly can set the codes up so they only work for a certain period of time in the morning and at night.
And then if we set it up that way, we wouldn't have, our kids wouldn't be in the building if the parents used the code, because it would be after hours.
Are there ways you could cut off access to the rest of the school if they're coming in after hours?
I mean, we can do what we do now when we have community members in that have nothing to do with the school, because we have, same thing we deal with basketball, with, in the gym with the high school. There are those doors that go on either end, but I don't know if we would want to, when the kids aren't there, I don't know if we'd want to do that, but I assume we could do whatever makes sense.
This room is behind the set of doors that closes off that wing, so theoretically, you could walk all the way down that wing. Yeah, I guess that's a con. It's true.
Yep.
I do want to mention that, in mentioning the cafeteria thing, like this MOU we would not provide lunch, and there's actually significant reasons under the USDA program. So offering lunch, I'm telling the board, is not an option because it's breaking them. But it's probably doable on another USDA program, which means a lot more regulation and a wholly different program. We don't want to do that. So meals are on them.
So it's a no.
I have a question about who covers the insurance for the classroom and the playground that will be put in?
So they would have to provide, we have general liability on all of our buildings, but they would have to, in the MOU would be language around indemnification and insurance. They'd have to identify us. They have to provide proof of insurance. It's just like when the rec department uses our gym, they're on the hook and they indemnify us against issues. So I think it's worked out in the legal details.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is more about the program and the education. And I don't know if you have the answer to this, but I saw the early learning curriculum is based on the New Hampshire early learning standards. Do you guys have any goals of becoming NEAYC accredited?
So since it's not our program, so the way I tend to think about this is that we are giving them the space, but it is their program. It's almost as if they're holding it in the house across the street from the school. So it's their program, it's their accreditation, it's their decision about, do they want to go for extra accreditation? Do they just want to do what they've done in the others? That would be their decision.
Okay. And yeah, we could push for it if we wanted, but if we're hands off, I don't know how much we want to be hands on. But
yeah.
All right.
This is sort of I think the genesis of this was everybody knows CCBA is closing down, and so if we can help a little bit, but instead of sending the kids to CCBA and your staff member, maybe send them here, give you someplace. So whether that happens in the future, that wasn't the intent here. It was really just to sort of provide something that we could help people.
Yep.
I'm just thinking about quality also is all.
Yep. There are a couple others, and then maybe we'll just open it for questions. So that's the staff piece, and then, did we get to our other, yes, because the other one we put earlier, which is the one that has the links for you guys. Okay, so then, Amy, should we just open up for questions and discussion and see what people want to do? Yeah.
So it's teachers do not, many of them do not work in the summer, or staff work in the summer. So the program wants to run the summer all along. So will they hold the slot? Will they expect the participants to actually pay? Are they concerned if maybe enrollment goes down in the summertime? Have they had any of those discussions?
So we certainly, we did ask about whether they want to do a 9-month program or a year-round program. Certainly if some even some staff will want year-round even if they only work 9 months. They just may not want all weeks of the summer. And certainly if we open it to the community members that aren't working on an academic calendar, they're going to need it. And so if they need it, then it's going to have to be year-round. And then it's between, if the teacher wants the slot and New Hampshire Boys and Girls Club says this is the price and you pay for a year, then that's between them if they want the slot. Because again, a lot of these aren't, it's sort of what they, I mean, it's going to be a market-driven thing. They'll have to price it. They'll have to figure out, I mean, it's the Boys and Girls Club, so they're about helping kids. They're not going to be gouging people. They're just going to set it up at a market rate. And then it's up to them. If it doesn't fill because it's mostly teachers and they only want 9 months, they may have to rethink whether they want a 9-month program or a year program. But if it's if we end up with not that many staff and a lot more people, families in our community that need year-round, then they'll probably have to go that direction. But I don't know if maybe they work out, maybe some people just want summer, and so maybe it offsets, I don't know. Yeah.
Right, so far he indicated that they were open to doing either way, but they certainly prefer a full year, and I was like, well, you're not gonna need it in the summer, and then Leah and Amy both said, well, maybe they still want it in the summer. But if you were to enroll, at least the way they have it set up right now, it's a year-round, and you pay for the year, whether you take the week or not, or whatever.
Yep.
Wendy, you're gonna.
So I'm curious about why we're prioritizing teachers and not Lebanon residents first. So if we sort of think about this space as taxpayer, it's an asset for our taxpayers. And I understand we just had the conversation about retention for teachers, and I do think that that's important, but I'm unsure when you talk about one of your priorities being to make sure that kids are ready for schools, why we wouldn't be prioritizing Lebanon students who will be going into our schools.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we would have enough spots we could do both. And then the question is just which way we want to prioritize. I think this is, certainly the New Hampshire Boys and Girls Club does not care. That's not their decision. It would be ours. And so it's really sort of an Amy question around priorities, because when we looked at the list of benefits, some of them are how we can do retention and help our staff who are struggling with childcare. But it's a community resource, so we do have to, but without teachers, that hurts the community too, so we have to sort of figure that out. I don't know where the balance is. It may be that in the end, you know, there's people that are more comfortable saying half the spots are going community and half the spots are going staff. Maybe if you're a member of the community and staff, you get to go into both lotteries. I have no idea.
And the other question is, I know that sometimes Hanover Street has been inaccessible during the summer, and summer school has had to be at the middle school because there's work being done in the buildings, there's stuff in the hallways. So will having a classroom that's year-round in the summer be a hindrance to work that happens in the building during the summers?
No.
I can't imagine.
No, I mean, there has been times when there's been a classroom renovation in a way or whatever, and we've moved, actually, quite honestly, from the facilities perspective, the summer program at the middle school is where it needs to stay. It makes sense. So having it at Hanover Street, a couple times you had it, made sense in some ways, but from facilities-wise, it was never good. So, and that's not because the school's locked off, it's just that there's 300 kids running around. So, I don't see that as an issue. So we have a classroom that we know we're operating, and so we'll make sure we don't stack furniture in front of the classroom, for example. So, the times in the past when it's not been at Hanover Street and instead went to the middle school, there was one time there was some specific work going on, I think, and then most of the time it's been kind of a debate and sort of which place is better, and sometimes Dana and I have won and sometimes we've lost.
Yeah, I think in terms of the summer, in some ways that's actually simpler because we have these brand new spaces all over the building. Then every other room will be renovated. They can move into any of those if it's the year when that room finally gets an upgrade, or I don't know, they have to replace carpet or whatever might mean that they have to be in their room for a long time. We could just move them into another room.
And Camp K requires a lot of space. That was one of the issues, is that it's not just a classroom. They needed multiple classrooms, and it's when you're at Hanover Street with the Camp K program, you're taking up lots of space, so it's way different than one classroom.
Since these renovation projects started back, or the conversation around them in 2017, one thing that we identified as a significant need was for our speech pathologists.
Yep.
And in the room, and it's not just about space, it's about soundproofing and all of that stuff. So if I'm understanding your map correctly, it looks like you're thinking about putting them in one of the busiest hallways there is in the school. And are we talking about how we make that, we truly bring that space up to regulations? Because it hasn't been.
Yeah, so I can give you just sort of my thoughts. So one of the reasons that we like, sort of separate from this whole thing, but just with the renovation and where we're going to put people, regardless of whether this happens or not, one of the reasons that we've put them all on that main hall is because there are no actual classrooms on that main hall. And so it will be a lot less, there will not be as many, there shouldn't be very much noise. There are 2 rooms of the library, and then the rest will all be there'll be 2 reading teachers in one, 2 reading teachers in another, 2 speech people in another.
But you've got kids moving to the cafeteria, to the music, to the library, to the gym. All
Oh, you
through
mean
that
like hallway
space.
noise, not next door neighbor noise?
Correct.
Yeah, we will have people walking. Yep, I mean, and that's true in any part of the building, but you're right, if it happened to be like at the end of the kindergarten, you would only have people
Or
come in and
just
out that door or
if they were
something.
upstairs still.
Oh, the upstairs thing, it's something we should talk about. So one of the reasons that we're trying to move some of the services off the second floor, because there are rules and regulations that that's why 4th grade is upstairs, if anyone doesn't know, is because we can't have the younger grades upstairs. So we can't have that, none of them are allowed to even have a classroom upstairs. There are the rules around the stairs and how old they are, and so that's one of the reasons why we're like, okay, let's see if speech does a lot with the littles. It would be nice to move them off of the second floor, so we have fewer kids using the upstairs. So that's what I'm thinking around it. We could, if people decide again, those yellow spaces, I don't really know who's going where yet, because the team's deciding, and we're not there yet. There is no reason that we couldn't leave them upstairs if that made the most sense. So we have the empty space, whether it's either way. If they go up, then the staff room stays down.
And I think if we move them, then I think we also need to make sure that that space is soundproof. And so do we have money in the budget to, if we're going to make sure that our space is providing the services that we want to provide and the quality that we want to provide, then just moving them into a space that doesn't really still bring that space up to regulation for them makes no sense to me.
Yep. So I think I'm going to just give you my thoughts, and I'm going to turn it over because I don't have the history of this, but I would say that problem is separate than this, in the sense that whether or not there's only going to be 2 of them in a room. We probably if we need to deal with soundproofing, that's an issue, whether we do this proposal or not. They're going to be in a room, there's going to be 2 of them. If we need to soundproof, we need to soundproof. If we can't soundproof, we can't. I'm not sure one hinges on the other. I don't think the problem is worse or better, regardless of whether we do the daycare piece of it. I know they're ecstatic to at least be in their own private room. If we have budget to soundproof and it's something we need to do, that feels like a conversation we would have to have with the construction people. I don't necessarily.
I think it's relevant to the conversation only because in 2017, we created a list of things that we wanted to see in these projects.
Mhm.
And when we went to the taxpayers and asked for the bond, there was expectations we were going to create spaces, we were maxed out in that building
Mhm.
in Hanover Street, and Hanover Street has been a conversation for a very long time. And so with the money that we ended up with, we weren't even able to do, we've been able to do some of the renovations, most, but they're
not
still,
all. Yeah.
right, they're still lacking. So to start thinking about using the space for things that weren't even part of the original conversation just seems a little premature. And so I just want to make sure that we're sort of cycling back to those original conversations, the things that our community is expecting us to resolve and to do in these buildings before we move on from that. So,
Yeah.
speech was a big part of that conversation, so I think we need to just think about how we're using these spaces, and are we meeting the intention of the bond, so that when we need another bond, our constituents aren't feeling like
Yep.
we did a bait and switch.
Yep. And the soundproofing does feel like an issue. I'm not sure it's connected, because it's not like we're spending money here that we won't spend on soundproofing. It just sounds more like we need to be careful that it was something people needed, asked for, so we better figure out if it's something we can do or not, or do they not need it if they're in two people in a big classroom as opposed to sharing with OTPT? I do not know the answer.
Tim, do we have standards for this, like,
I don't know about that. I actually don't, I remember
Trying to think of
conversations about
other
getting
schools.
speech separated from PTOT, but as far as soundproofing, I don't remember those discussions. But I would point out that that main hallway where you're proposing moving them has not been renovated yet. And so moving them into a space, if we like it down there, and that's, that's one of the classrooms that's up for debate and for future budget meetings as far as renovating, maybe that's when we handle the soundproofing thing. The space upstairs has all been renovated and is basically done, so it actually, and that way, makes more sense. The other thing I'd say, and I don't think I'm pro and con, so don't take it that way. I would say that, I would observe that 2017 was 7 years ago, and needs evolve, and so it seems irresponsible from an administrative standpoint to not adjust to the needs that are here now. 7 years ago, we seemed like we were bursting at the seams. We needed these classrooms, and CCBA had their daycare and stuff and things. And now, suddenly, we have even a bigger daycare shortage than before. So that's
Right, but we're not prioritizing Lebanon residents, so that's for me the problem. Like, we're not.
Well, I mean, I think we're prioritizing them in a slightly different way. Like, if we put teachers first, if we say we want to give these spots to teachers, we're prioritizing Lebanon residents by saying we're trying to make sure that we have your teachers are on site, that they're not here because they couldn't get daycare. Like, I don't think I think we're still prioritizing Lebanon residents. We're just trying to do it in the most addressable pinch point that we have. 15 spots for Lebanon residents is kind of like, it's important, it's not nothing, but 15 spots for teachers so that Lebanon, so that one teacher can serve however many students in a Lebanon school, I think that it's just a different way of doing the math. To go back to this question of the intention of the earlier renovations, and I think the bond, and we've had some feedback from the community, I actually, I think it's a really valid point that we want to make sure that the concerns that were sort of brought forward, the intention of that bond is respected. And I think that I've actually been really grateful to the community for sort of speaking about that. And I think that I also am really grateful to the administrators who I think have done a great job of addressing that in this proposal. I think that I really am very grateful both to the community for speaking up and for the administrators for looking for a way around that. I think that this is actually a really good proposal. Just like to be clear on my perspective, the preschool program run by the Lebanon School District is exceptional. It is an absolutely superior program. It is, I could tell you stories that would make you cry about the quality of that program, and we don't need more of that tonight, so I won't. But I think that I feel so intensely that that is an exceptional program, that it serves our community incredibly well, that it is a driver of equity within our community, that it is a financial benefit to our school system because of how well it prepares these kids to enter our kindergarten classrooms. I cannot tell you the number of adults at a preschool party yesterday who came up to me and said, this is the best behaved group of kids of this age that I've ever seen. They all get along. They come from completely different needs, and they are doing beautifully together. It is absolutely exceptional. I am sad that the conversation we're having right now is not how do we provide that to more residents, how do we do more of that, and I am incredibly grateful that we are looking at what can we do. We have a lot of needs, let's put some solutions out there. So from my mind, we are very far off from where I would ideally love to see this conversation happening, because the truth is we have an amazing program that we run. I'd love to see it expand. That's a different conversation. I'm so glad we're having this one. I'm so glad that the community has spoken. I'm glad the administrators have been responsive. So I just really want to commend everybody who's worked on this. It's really thoughtful. I am fully in support of it, and I really hope that the board decides to move forward with this, because I think that we have to try some stuff, and I think this is a really good step in the right direction. So,
are there other comments? Other board members?
I have a couple more questions.
Go ahead. More questions, either way.
I'm just
Comments
curious
or
to know if the program has been run in an actual other school building. Do we know?
Not coinciding with the school. They are currently using excess school.
Excess spaces not
yeah.
within a school
Yeah.
building. That's kind of one of my that was one of my thinking. Do we know how this is impacting our emergency operations plans? Is my next big question, which is probably a huge answer, so we'll just leave that as a question in the moment. And then my other kind of questions are our current enrollment in pre-K and our current space at Mount Leb. I think that is a part of this conversation. I want to make sure that the Mount Leb school has the space that it needs. I want to make sure that our pre-K program has the space that it needs. All of those types of things before I'm even going to consider something like this. So does our pre-K have enough space? And did we turn people away from pre-K?
Yes, return.
And it's also, I think it's a completely different, to be clear, we don't, the preschool program and what is being proposed here.
I understand that.
Yeah,
It's just a question.
Yeah, but I think we have to keep, when we talk about preschool, and this has been part of the, it can get fuzzy, so all I'm wanting to do is make sure that we use clear terminology in terms of the difference between our preschool program and what is being proposed. We talk about them as completely very different animals.
But we did used to have a preschool classroom
Correct.
at Hanover Street School, so it's not, so I think what John
Correct,
is saying, if we needed to add a classroom, if Mount Leb doesn't have the space, this would be a space where we could add an additional classroom for our preschool program.
But they don't serve the same, they don't serve the same, it's not the same function.
No, they're talking about in the past, there was another classroom of this very same pre-K program that we have at Mount Leb. They've been split before in the
Yes.
past. Same.
Can I say something? I think the difference really is too, is this is, I understand what your question is, John, and I can answer that. But this is calling it an early childhood classroom, and I do think a change could be, we could call it a daycare, because daycare is very different than early childhood, and I think that's what you're trying to say, Jessica.
Yes.
It's very different programming. Your question is there enough space for our current
Correct.
preschool? The answer is no. We have a huge wait list, a bigger wait list now that we don't have the CCBA people are calling. Referrals are up. But the difference is this doesn't cost the district anything, and to add another preschool classroom would require at least one more teacher and a few more paras. So that would be a bigger cost to the district. That's to answer your question.
Yep. Next question is, LEA isn't here tonight. How many teachers are actually interested in this program? Do we have that number?
We haven't had a formal survey. Right now, just by word of mouth, people talking, I've had at least 8 or 9 people say, yes, 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 please, 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 we'll sign up.
And I want to indicate again, we're talking, this is where using
Not-
teachers loosely is frustrating because it's all staff, and I know of a couple people in the SAU who are interested, just because word of mouth.
And then my last question, sorry, Wendy, my last question is really about the library space, which was another thing that was discussed many, many, many times about Hanover Street School. And that was not incorporated into this project. And it is basically the exact same space it was. And is it meeting our needs?
So I'm not going to say it would be amazing to walk in and see the back wall of those 2 rooms blown out to include this beautiful library that was in one of the plans. I can say that it does function very well, and when I say that, we had this decision we had to make about the extra funds, which is a lovely problem to have, not one I ever thought I'd have, where someone said, we have extra money, what does staff think we should do? And we did put out a list of many of the things, if not all the things that had come up in any of the iterations of the project, and the staff did prioritize, sorry, we got a mosquito, did prioritize which ones they thought would have the biggest impact. And people said, we're good with the library, we love the library. And it just didn't make the priority list, which doesn't mean that it wouldn't be amazing. It just means in order of priority, it wasn't the top. The nurses expansion got the highest priority when, for everybody, that one was a clear one. And then renovating the 105, 106, which is that service side of the other side of 3rd grade. So, which isn't to say it wouldn't be amazing. I would totally love a new library and a big library, but it didn't seem to be the pressing one.
Other
questions or comments, yeah?
So one of the things I remember again back from original conversations, part of what started the conversation is we were maximizing and utilizing 100% of our space at Hanover Street School and pushing into custodial closets and stuff like that. So, and at that time, I remember somebody saying, whoever the administrator was at that time, that like a healthy building, school building, is functioning at like 85% of its space capacity kind of thing. So it looks like from what I'm seeing is that we're the only reason we sort of have this extra space is because we now only have 3 third grade classrooms. And I know that we don't know what enrollment is, but as a community, we haven't sort of officially decided that we're comfortable with classrooms of 20 at this point. So if we need to add to have 4 classrooms per grade in this building, and we no longer have, so would we keep then the early child education space and then push our OTs and PTs back into one space? Or how do we?
I can answer
or
that.
do we all of a sudden
Within the
keep that space
MOU,
out?
that would be year to year, with that, depending on our space needs. Like our enrollment, you'll see what our current K is, what they'll go up for the next year. This year's 4th grade class is an anomaly. If you're looking at the trends, right now, they're all running around anywhere from 55 to 62 for those classrooms.
So similar,
like potentially this board could
If
decide
we-
next year we don't need that additional 4th grade classroom next year because we're in 3 this year and they managed that. That could be.
Right.
Right.
But so the other could also happen, right?
We could have more people come in. We could have teachers bringing their children in. We could have,
Right.
we could have a development,
So-
and we would have that option.
But you're saying we could kick them out if we needed to. The MOU would say that you have the space as long as we have the space, basically.
So in our last conversation for teacher retention, we're saying, there's value in if we commit to the student even as early as kindergarten, that we'll educate that person until 12th grade. So in a daycare setting, it feels like it feels more precarious to say like, oh, we might have this daycare, we'll have this daycare this year, but we might not.
That's the reality on the ground right now. Like, that's just what it is out there. Like, there's no guarantee that, that is, I think that, I hear what you're saying, that's true, but it's so bad that, you deal with that reality in any daycare situation anywhere in the Upper Valley right now. And so I think that, yes, it's true that in an ideal world, we would have, and the thing that the city wanted to do, that would be great. But we're not there, and so I feel like this, to me, is so much a case of something is better than nothing. Doing something is just so much better than nothing, because what we have right now is such a disaster in this area, that's what it is, really.
So I would say, because it's something to think about, right? We don't want to do something thinking ideally it's not just a one-year solution. But I do think, if you look at the numbers, since the MOU will only commit us, it's not a long-term, it's not a 5-year, you get the space, it's really just as it goes. So that's your protection there too. But also, if you think about it, we have this, we've had this 80 student sort of bubble that's moved through, and we've managed that with 4 teachers in every grade. So they've managed this for the last however many years they've been here, so 4 years of this. So it would take having an extra more than 80 in a grade, and then they would have to go year by, so we could have an extra 30 kindergartners more than what we've been having show up in kindergarten. The problem will happen when they get to 3rd grade, if that's the grade right now that has 3 teachers instead of 4. So we will see this problem coming. Now, it's possible we'll get phone calls and we'll have 40 extra kindergartner or 3rd graders show up out of the blue, but unlikely. It's more likely it'll begin to grow at the bottom. So we should have enough notice, since we're not signing a long-term MOU with them. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on it, because you're right. I mean, you're following me? Because the problem won't exist until it hits,
Except
at the moment, 3rd grade.
I've been part of conversations in the community too, when numbers start pushing up into 20. I know that we can do that, I think we haven't had the conversation with the community, whether that's, I mean, I know that's what our policy says. I know that we can do that. I have been part of conversations, especially in the elementary school grades, where, you know, once it starts popping over 18, people are uncomfortable. So
one thing that I have thought about that might be nice to see in conjunction with a project like this is that I was reviewing the Prismatic report, and they did population studies for Lebanon. This is back from, I think it came out in 2011, or maybe it was
15, I think.
14 or 15.
I'm not sure, because their data starts in 2011.
I think they went back.
So it may have gone back a couple of years, but so maybe it was 2014. So that's still 10 years ago. But the population study is extremely accurate in terms of its projections for enrollment. It's off this year by less than, we are under by 1%, 0.1, less than 1%. Like, they are very accurate, and they did a really good job, and I think that if we were concerned, and I think we actually should be probably getting another sort of, I don't know, we may have had some studies done more recently, I'm not really sure, but like, that might be a good thing to have happening at the same time, is like, let's make sure that we are tracking this stuff, because they do actually know how to study these things, they do know how to project it out, it is a science, like, we don't have to be surprised. I mean, like, obviously things happen, but I think it might be nice if that would give some security to sort of feel like we are looking at that more closely. I think that would be wise for the district anyway. Again, I still don't think it should stop us from trying something for a year and sort of seeing what we can learn, but.
I just wanted to point out, so you'll notice on the agenda, this is not an action item, this is just a discussion item. I think we've raised some good questions, it seems like some of which we've addressed, some of which we haven't addressed. I think what we need to do is decide, are we going to give the sort of nod to pursue the rest of this planning, or to finish deciding on spaces, for instance, space allocation. We've talked about what we could and could not do. I'm assuming you're talking about that with your staff, obviously. So the question I think we just need to say is, what is our comfort with going forward to get to the point of an MOU? That we would have in front of us, right? Something to decide on in front of us. Like this, that's sort of we don't really need to take an action. We just need to decide, are we comfortable with this at all? And would we like them to continue to pursue the information gathering that they've been doing and the planning that they've been doing?
I do have one more question before we move forward to that, and is that, does the school district have any other building space that could be used for this? Is the SAU building being fully utilized?
You
can't use it?
No, I mean, Tim,
Some
was here.
of you longtime board members have heard this question before, so.
Sorry.
Well, the SAU is fuller than you might think. Obviously, remember that the fire department is moving into the third floor for the next 18 months. And the bottom floor was assessed for a preschool a bunch of years ago, and it can't do preschool. It's steps, and it's not ADA compliant. So that's off the table, unfortunately. The whole building is ADA compliant with elevators, but you can't have kids going to the bathroom because there's steps in the way, so.
Okay.
That's a good question. It's a good question. Any other questions that we would like someone to answer?
I think maybe one, along with John's question, just to ask it, how is Mount Leb as far as space? Like, we had moved Hanover Street's preschool program over to Mount Leb because of space needs at Hanover Street. So is Mount Leb in need of any space? And so should we be thinking about moving that classroom back?
Katie, do you want to address that?
I can address it, yeah. Yes, so we do have a classroom back because we went down a fourth grade teacher. I will say that our PT space is still on the stage, so we don't have an extra room for PT, OT. We'll still share with someone else, so we are still tight in space, to be honest with you. Yeah. And I don't know where else to put PT because there's a big swing. And I think we actually moved it, I don't know if we necessarily moved it over just because of space over here. I think it did allow for a little bit larger room, Wendy, but I think we also did it to unify. The thought was to have, that Hanover Street had the intensive needs and then Mount Leb would take over all the preschool setting is, I believe, what we also did. And then it was overseen by me at the time, so, because I was early childhood certified. So I think that was really part of it too.
What would you like from us?
I think, as you mentioned, just the next step would be to compile the rest of the questions about EOP, that preschool need, any more projections for enrollment. But in order for the MOU, I think that would be some cost for us too, to have the lawyers start working on the MOU. So if this board is not going to support that, I think we could put this aside and move forward. But if you would like me to explore the MOU, I'd like to move forward with that as well.
You can make the motion.
I was gonna say, can we make it's like an interim motion?
You can also do a little straw poll.
Yeah, we can do a straw poll, that's good. Let's do that first.
Yes.
Then we'll decide on. Yeah, so straw poll. How many of us are feeling like we want them, what Amy just outlined, to sort of pursue the answers to the questions that we've raised, moving towards articulating an MOU that we can look at in greater detail? Anyone?
Those seem like two different things.
Okay.
I kind of want the answers to the questions before I decide whether we want to
Okay.
move towards the MOU.
Well, oh, that's good. I mean, okay.
I'm with Richard.
Two separate things, all
I would
right.
prefer not to spend any money on
Right,
our attorney.
you're right, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to, let's just separate it out. So back to our straw poll. How many of us would like to pursue the answers to these questions that we've raised? Let's start with that.
The questions, the specific questions being.
EOP.
The EOP.
Emergency operations.
How,
Sorry.
I think that's really less a question about more of what we're going to build a plan, so it's.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
Yeah,
not a
like
question. We have to
Yeah,
develop
that's
a
the thing,
plan.
I'm not hearing a
Yeah,
question
so there's not a
there,
question
it's
like,
just-
but we can write how a early childhood classroom would fit into our EOP plan.
I think the question is, the straw poll is more like, who is interested in just moving this conversation forward, sort of generally.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's fine, because really that next step is this MOU with the idea, if this was going, that the Boys and Girls Club would want to start getting their, advertising, but building the fence and all that other stuff that they're responsible for.
Okay, so let's go with that then. Who is interested in having this conversation move forward? Richard, you've got
I
to
don't know what that entails. I'm sorry, I don't know what that entails.
Well,
You just
but
said you're going to start building a fence?
No. No.
I'm so confused here.
Moving towards an MOU is actually what she's saying is the next step.
So, are we talking about paying lawyers to draft an MOU?
Their lawyer will draft the MOU, our lawyer will review the MOU and make sure our needs are being protected.
I mean, truthfully, I feel like we're splitting hairs here a little bit, because I think the truth is, if people aren't interested in spending money, the very limited amount of money that it's gonna take to review an MOU, you're indicating that you are not interested in this program at all. Which is you're right. I'm not trying to take that right away, but I'm not sure we need to like split hairs here. If there's not interest in moving forward, let's deliver that message. If you are interested, interest does not say that when the MOU comes down, you're gonna vote for it, because we don't know what's in the MOU yet. We don't have that. I think that like interest in saying, yes, we are going to do this preliminary work, we are going to continue to go forward with this proposal that's come forward, is one thing. That's not the same thing as saying, and then I'm definitely gonna vote for it. That's a different question. So I think, to me, we don't need to dilly-dally too much about this. We can just say, are you interested in having an MOU brought forward to this board for this program? If you aren't, you aren't. If you are, then we'll see where we get to.
I mean, I've had 6 of these questions. So, okay, we'll try that one. So, who is, seriously, are you interested in bringing an MOU forward for this program, pursuing additional information, getting us to an MOU? Yes or no? So all those in favor of being interested in doing that moving forward, raise your hands. All right, so that's 5-ish. All right, and all those not in favor? We have a
I'm just not there yet.
okay, and not, okay, that's 5-3, which means we're going to proceed. So we will proceed to the next step, and then we will vote again.
And we'll still, I mean, we
Yes,
still have, like,
still
I
have
think
discussion, we'll still
I
be
don't
voting.
think that that's intended to say, like,
No.
everybody is now saying this is gonna happen. It's just saying.
No.
Let's.
More detail. Okay, great, moving on. We are moving to, oh fun, moving to the MOU for the CRO.
Right, it should be included in your packets. The information was taken from feedback from our non-public. As I mentioned at our last board meeting, I received feedback from the police department, very minimal to some of the changes. They wanted to have some language just added, policy and procedures manual. As I mentioned before, we added some language around program elements, about creating and nurturing positive interactions with students to prevent the involvement in the criminal justice system. The original one just said to prevent students from involvement in there. And I think the other one is, we're meeting, it was about the time that I'll be meeting with the chief, I think quarterly, for that language. Otherwise, they were in support of this.
So I feel very strongly against the change to program element 1A. Very strongly. I think that changing the duty and responsibility to prevent involvement in the criminal justice system to creating and nurturing positive interactions with students to prevent involvement in the criminal justice system completely misunderstands the reasons why people get involved in the criminal justice system. It is not for lack of nurturing positive interactions with police officers. And I think that really undercuts that. One of the things I really liked about the draft that we looked at was that 1A was working to prevent students involved in the criminal justice system, and I think that is a real sticking point for me. That is where I'm coming from.
Okay, yeah, Jessica.
I felt less strongly about a lot of things that I felt like were mostly words, truthfully, but I respect that. I think the one part that I felt pretty strongly about was in section 9, training. CROs will be certified through the following approved, this is the second sentence, certified through the following approved NASRO courses as soon as practical. That was one of my major concerns about the current or the previous MOU. I think the current SRO has been in that position for 13 years. If he's not already certified, then it's not an issue. If someone else was to come into the position, I would not want them to enter that position until they had those certifications. If they didn't have them, I would want them before they were certified as a CRO. And so I think that it shouldn't be as soon as practical. I think it should be before assuming duties as a CRO. Those to me that is what sets a CRO or an SRO apart from, like, that is explicitly the one thing that sort of says you have additional training in these things. If you don't have additional training in those things, then to me, the conversation is, yeah. Okay. So I feel pretty strongly about that.
Other comments?
I just want, I think we should publicly sort of just clarify the Valley News statement that indicated that the CRO would be visiting our buildings on a rotating schedule, and maybe clarify why we would be inviting, I mean, in some ways, the article did clarify, especially in elementary school, those opportunities for the CRO to come in, but what do we sort of foresee would be the reasons we would invite the CRO into our buildings, so that people have a sense that we're not trying to continue to have our student body surveilled.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was there was some misrepresentation, I think, in that article a little, and so yes, it's clear in the MOU. That's not that's not unclear in the MOU as it's stated. There are multiple steps, points in the MOU where we talk about the various kinds of things that they could be doing, including including teaching if a administrator requested it, or if a SAU administrator requested, a building administrator, SAU administrator, also for various activities that we want a police presence for. There's multiple things that we would need that for, and then also for interactions for all of our emergency planning and for our emergency procedures. So those sorts of things are clear. There could be other things that the CROs themselves could come up with, but those would be only in coordination with building principals and SAU administration. So it would not be that they are showing up, or that they're coming every Thursday to Hanover Street School. That's not at all what the MOU says.
Intention is.
Right. Good clarification.
In the evaluation section 16, it's mutually agreed that the school district shall annually evaluate the CRO program and all CROs' performance on forms developed jointly by the parties. Is that the superintendent or the board?
That's the superintendent.
Should we clarify that? I also was a little, section 15, quality assurance, CRO is the superintendent, and then the chief of police or designee. I thought that was an interesting one. I'm not sure.
It might be the assistant chief once.
I guess, though, wouldn't we want it to definitely be someone who had supervisory capacity?
The assistant chief does as well.
But should we, I mean, I don't know, and maybe it's fine, but it struck me like, if you had a bad relationship, and if somehow this relationship was bad, they could send the front desk officer to come to.
I mean, usually, this is in all of our policies. We say the superintendent or the designee, and it's whoever they designate. That, I mean, so.
But I think that's an internal process. This is about quality assurance, which is if there's a problem, we wouldn't want to be talking to someone who doesn't have any authority to do anything. I guess that's my concern.
And we don't state designee for our superintendent.
Yeah, I'm not worried.
I trust the process with the police. I think we've really started to have an open, ongoing dialogue, and we've met. When I'm there, I'm meeting with the chief, the assistant chief. I'm meeting with different training officers for the EOP piece. Like,
if the superintendent feels fine about it, I feel fine about it. I just wanted to call it out as something that.
And we could change it to say SCRO is the superintendent and the chief of police, or their designees. I mean, for both of them, it's an easy change.
Why do we give them, why is access to the internet called out as something that we provide?
There's a carryover from the last one.
It felt like a carryover because it felt like in the last one it was associated with an office.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't know, it was like, why?
Like, I think if it was on his computer, we'd let him.
Well, yeah, I was like, I don't know, it just feels like a weird thing to have in here. Like, you shall have the internet.
Yeah.
For a fee.
Right.
Right.
I want to go back to the program elements to see if this is a deal breaker for them, because they really want to have the CRO building relationships with students.
And that is a problem for me.
Well, but do they have to be dependent on each other? So, does it have to be one bullet? That's my question.
If you want to bump creating nurturing positive interactions way down the list and keeping and separate them to prevent student involvement in the criminal justice system, that is a little bit better. I don't want to create more interactions, positive or negative, with the police.
But I think we are, by doing this, by asking them to do programming in the summer, we're increasing for that piece. And I think there is that value for that connection too, with as known from our incident here at Hanover Street, that our families do see them as a resource.
Then separating them would be a compromise that I would accept.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you. So can we go back?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll keep number one, the criminal justice, and I'll put
I think in fairness, if we don't feel like this is, we have one board member who has expressed that opinion. That's 1 out of 9. Yeah. So I think that, I'm not sure we need to go back and renegotiate an MOU on one point.
Although I think that there's a lot of community support for that
Yeah,
opinion.
I think if there's a broader conversation, that's fair, but
I mean, I think that's sort of echoing the broader conversation that we have had. So, I mean, I agree. I mean, I agree that those two things do not, the way that it's phrased, they do, now that I'm looking at it now, they do seem like they are
Different things.
linked and they are different things, so we can de-link them.
I guess, for those of you who have had a feedback on this, I guess my concern is that, like, there's a lot of stuff in here which sort of speaks to that side of the equation. There is a fair amount in this MOU that is about sort of creating and nurturing positive interactions and introducing sort of interactions, so I'm questioning, because I am in a different cohort of the community, so I don't know what everyone's heard, but I'm just concerned, does this actually address the concerns that you've heard? Because
I think from my perspective, one of the things that I like about this, and this is, again, the language of the MOU, not the sort of perceptions of what it does or doesn't say, but actually the actual language. One of the things that I do like is that it is unrealistic to assume that we would have no interaction with the police department ever as schools in the town, right? So in order for that interaction to be as productive and collaborative and proactive as possible and as mutually beneficial as possible, then to me, what I like about this is it's spelling out the parameters of that, right? So that we are not allowing surveillance, we are not allowing someone to be stationed in a school at all times. We're sort of taking out those parts that were big sticking points for a lot of us, and I think for a lot of community members, but also recognizing the reality of we have to have a relationship, and it has to be a good one. And I think that this latest incident that happened with the lockdowns of the two schools, for me, really illustrated that was actually a good example of why we need that relationship to be as mutually beneficial as possible, right? And so for that, I do appreciate the details here that are on all the sides, I think. Emery, go ahead.
I would take to prevent involvement in the criminal justice system and put after students build positive relationships.
And just move that to a different bullet.
And prevent involvement in the criminal justice system higher up. Keep it, like, don't take it out entirely. Keep it its own separate.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Agreed. Say what you said again, Mary, one more time.
Creating and nurturing positive interactions with students to build positive relationships.
Yes, I think
something like that.
We can wordsmith that.
Yeah. Because you're also, if the student goes home and is talking to their parents and they're positive, then you're helping out the family relationship as well. So, and that's what we want to happen.
Yeah.
Doesn't always happen.
So I know they did, this is sort of language that they came up with when they read our original language, so we're gonna have to, if we want to change this, we're gonna have to go back and forth with them, I think, again, which if we're comfortable doing that, I think that's fine. And you're comfortable doing that?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So I think that's sort of where we are. We don't have to take action on this right now, because.
But I mean, I feel like we can, if they agree to that, I think.
Yeah, we can.
Then
right.
If we agree, you're good
so
to
I don't
sign.
feel like we need to
have to come back.
have
We can
this
just
come
say,
back.
that's fine.
So
Right. Yeah, I mean,
we can pass a motion to agree with those modifications. If they don't agree to those modifications, then we.
Okay, so can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the CRO MOU with the modifications we've discussed.
Okay, motion by Wendy, second by MJ. Any additional discussion?
I think the only question is, do we want to add police officer in the title? Since it came up in public comment? Yeah.
No, just one person. Are there other kinds of officers? I don't think of other kinds of officers.
Yeah, I think there's only police officers. That's all they have there. So I don't think it's necessary, but.
I'm fine. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we.
Oh, that's what I think, like probation, parole, corrections officers, they are still police officers.
But they're all police officers,
Yeah.
right? Okay, all right, all those in favor of the motion? Okay, Okay, any against? No? All right, unanimous. Excellent. All right, moving on to the discussion action 5-day rollover for SAU administrators vacation time.
All right. Leave in your packets, thank you for one of the board members for asking for clarification, because I was able to include our conditions for employment for our SAU administrative staff. So, of course you can.
We are at our 3-hour mark of the meeting, and when we are at 3 hours, don't we have to make a motion to extend for 15 minutes? I believe we do, it's one of our things. So can I get a motion to extend the meeting for 15 minutes?
I think it's gonna be more than that.
Well,
I mean, if you're
no, it's
non-public.
Oh, if we have non-public, right, it's gonna be longer than that.
30 minutes.
30
I
minutes,
hear
let's do
30.
30. We'll be efficacious.
I'll make a motion to extend the meeting for an extra 30 minutes.
Can I get a second? Second by Tia, motion by MJ, second by Tia. All those in favor? Okay, thank you, sorry. Apologies.
I'm really heavy all of a sudden there.
It said 10 o'clock, but then it says 3 hours, so it's both.
Oh,
We have to fix
interesting.
the.
All right, I'll talk quickly. So tonight, I'm asking for permission to roll over 5 unused vacation days for 2 SAU administrative staff, being the business administrator, Tim Ball, and the district director of equity curriculum instruction, Karen DuBois. I included the SAU conditions of employment in your packet, which hopefully clarifies and outlines why I'm asking you that. There are 3 certified administrative staff at the district, which 4, I'm not included in this, but Karen Woolsey, who is retiring. Both Tim and Karen have extra days, and in their, the conditions, they can carry up to 5 days over to the next year, but it has to be used by September 1st for that. So I would like to support this tonight because both of these valuable employees worked with me through my day one when we had a cyber incident and onboarded me as my first year superintendent. So we as a collective group talked about this summer mapping out a plan so all people can access their vacation time and get that much needed rest. So.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the superintendent's request for the SAU administrative staff tonight on the agenda, and I would also like to include to amend the conditions of employment for SAU certified administrative staff to read superintendent instead of Lebanon School Board.
Oh, where is that?
So like for the future that I approve it?
Correct.
Yeah, where is
that?
It is under leave time on
Leave
the
time.
back of the first page.
Thank you. Just
Underneath vacation time, sick leave, personal time, it's that second sentence.
Yeah.
I would like it to read superintendent instead of Lebanon School Board. If someone makes a second, I will explain my thinking.
Okay, seconded by Wendy. Motion by John, second by Wendy.
And my thinking is that we don't supervise those administrators and the superintendent does, and I think we should correct that.
Excellent. Any additional comment on that?
All right.
No? Okay. All those, well, so it's both things. The motion it covers both the revision and also the granting of the rollover time. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Excellent work. Thank you, John. It's very helpful. All right. Okay, committee updates. Finance and Facilities, next meeting is Thursday, May 9th at 4:15 at the SAU office. Policy Committee, their next meeting will be Monday, May 13th at 8:15 a.m. at the SAU office. Education Committee met Monday. Tia, did you want to share anything from SBC?
Yeah, we made some plans for next year, a timeline, and I don't want
We
to
talked
go
about
too long.
CIE.
We already did.
We talked about the
Social studies
social
course.
studies, required social studies class in 9th grade.
Your minutes are in your packet.
And the minutes are in the packet, detailed minutes.
They were great minutes. Good job, John.
All right, next meeting is Monday, June 3rd at 4 p.m. at the SAU office. PNN committee will meeting May 29th, time to be determined. Also, the full board will be meeting May 29th as well, just FYI.
Our PNN early meeting is 5 to 6, where we will elect a chair of PNN and get our goals and charge.
And then we will have a meeting of the full board, which will probably be a Zoom meeting with, Zoom non-meeting with council, where we will all meet together and talk about what we want PNN to actually do. So they're gonna just elect their officers and figure out their schedule, and then we're going to all discuss via Zoom with Jim what it is
Just
that we are
the
looking for
groundworks and kind of parameters as
for the
we
LEA
start.
negotiations.
A non-meeting at what time?
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
I will send the Zoom out tomorrow.
Oh, is that immediately following the PNN?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And our PNN is a Zoom 5 to 6,
Okay.
Google Meet too, so it'll be a
Multiple Zooms. Okay. SWAC met Wednesday, May 8th.
That's me also. So as Tim said, we have committed again to crush picks. That was kind of the big topic, and we just made some goal setting for next school year. Anything that we might want to do.
All right, and their next meeting will be in fall 2024. HACTC, their next meeting is Tuesday, May 21st at 10 a.m. in HACTC. Area Committee, the next meeting is Tuesday, May 14th at 6 p.m. School District City Task Force is May 23rd at 6 p.m.
If I sent emails to the committee members, if you would like an agenda item, please send them to me by Friday so I can talk with the city manager.
Okay, and we do have a need to go into a non-public under
negotiations. And then there's another item, but under negotiations. It's a facility item, Tim needs a contract facility.
So, hold on, we gotta figure out, we need a motion to go into non-public, but we have to figure out what our.
Confidential.
Yes, schedule, yeah, J.
So I'm going to make a motion to go into non-public under NHRSA 91A 32J.
And can I get a second? Okay, and roll call vote for that. Tia?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Mary, yes.
Yes.
Richard, yes. And that's all we need. All right, and we'll go into non-public. Thank you.
Where is non-public here?
We're gonna. Are there any future agenda items, board member recommendations or questions? No? Okay, can I get a motion to, oh, yes, I want to, before we do that, the next school board meeting is Wednesday, May 22nd at 6:30 p.m. and the retreat is Wednesday, June 26th at 6:30 p.m. I am going to open up the open up public comment one more time. Is there anyone in the room who would like to public comment? No? Is there anyone online?
There is no one online.
Okay. Now, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Richard, and second by MJ. Okay, all those in favor? Thank you.